Hearing to order. For the record, my name is Julia Mejia, City Councilor at Large. I am the chair of the Boston City Council's Committee on Government Accountability, Transparency, and Accessibility. Today is Monday, March 27th, 2023, and we are here today for a remote hearing on docket 0253, order for a hearing to audit the city's Boston procurement processes, procedures, and progress. This matter was sponsored by myself and Councilor Tanya Anderson and was referred to the committee on January 25th, 2023. In accordance with Chapter 107, the Acts of 2022, modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law and relieving public bodies of certain requirements, including the requirement that public bodies conduct its meetings in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public, the City Council will be conducting this hearing virtually via Zoom, and it is being recorded. This enables the City Council to carry out its responsibilities while ensuring public access to its deliberations through adequate alternative means. The public may watch this hearing via live stream at www.boston.gov/city-council-tv and on Xfinity 8, RCN 82, files 964. It'll also be rebroadcasted at a later date. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.gata@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. If you wish to sign up for public hearing and have not done so, please email Shane Pack at shane.pack@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Interpretation is also available for this hearing, and I'm going to pause now so that the interpreters can provide instructions on how we go about doing just that. Erika.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erika Perez, and I will be working with my colleague, Gabriela Herrera, providing Spanish-English interpretation. For Spanish-speaking folks, when we'll have somebody speaking Spanish, so at the bottom of your screen, you will see a little globe. Click there and make sure to choose English to hear the interpretation. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Erika Pérez y voy a estar interpretando con mi colega Gabriela Herrera. Ya la interpretación está activada. En la parte de abajo hay un pequeño globito. Hagan clic ahí y escojan español para escuchar la interpretación. Y listo, si está usando su celular, hay 3 puntitos. Aparece donde dice chat, interpretación de idioma, escoja español y finalizado. Gracias. All set, Chair.
Muchas gracias, Erika. Okay. So I just wanted to note for the record that we have been joined by our City Council colleagues. We have always in attendance, Councilor President Ed Flynn of District 2, Councilor Liz Breeden of District 9, Councilor Kendra Latta of District 6, Councilor Brian Morrell of District 4. And myself as the chair. And for our community panel, we have Luis Roman, who is with Amplify Latinx, a board member and the architect for the Power Up program. We have Darian Johnson, who is with the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts. We have Argentina Vilar, who's the manager of LV Home Improvements and Cleaning Company. Roberto Green, who's the owner of Las Palmas, and Rafael Danielito Guzman, who is a owner of Ray Services and Company. Before I introduce the administrative panel, I want to note for the record that our office requested Chris Radcliffe, the interim purchasing agent in procurement, and Maureen Joyce, the city auditor, to present at today's hearing, as well as representatives from the BPS purchasing, since they are one of the biggest buyers of the city of Boston. Unfortunately, we are excited and grateful for those who are here with us. We have the same usual suspects, and we are really grateful to have Chief Iruo from the Economic Empowerment and Inclusion Cabinet, and we also have members from the Supplier and Workforce Inclusion. Because of this change, we have had to pivot slightly to accommodate these changes. However, I hope that if there are additional questions that the panel is not able to answer during this hearing, that we can have those shared with us in promptly in a different matter. With that said, I also wanted to make note of our administration panel. We have Chief Itagu, who is the Chief Economic Opportunity, the Cabinet for Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. Andre Lima, who is the Director of Supplier and Workforce Diversity. We have Michael Miller, the Director of Strategic Procurement, and Jennifer Dufour, who is the Deputy Director of Strategic Procurement. So I would like to give my colleagues the opportunity to share any opening remarks in the order of attendance. So we'll start with President Flynn. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the administration team that is here and the community panel as well. I'd like to learn more about this topic and this subject, but I also would like to ask the administration team, when they speak, if they can provide an update on what the procurement laws are, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, how much flexibility they have, what are the rules regarding procurement. One of the main issues I want to hear today as well is hoping that everyone's on the same page, but making sure that when we do procurement law, we follow the letter of the law. And if there needs to be changes, then there needs to be changes. But I just want to make sure that all city employees abide by the law, because I don't want to see anyone in trouble for anything, for any type of issue. So again, want to know what the law is and what flexibility there is, but also making sure that we also respect the law as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Flynn. I am going to now move on to Councillor Breeden, District 9. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the panel members who are all here this afternoon. This is an important topic, procurement. We spend a lot of money in the city on services that are coming at a lower cost, and altogether it amounts to millions of dollars. And I'm really interested in learning more about how potential contracts are advertised. I understand that we have the city record that goes out every week with potential opportunities for procurement, for service vendors to provide services to the city. I'd like to know how that all works. And also, I understand that, in 2021, there was a review of the procurement reform analysis with a proposal to set up a central office of contract services model that would centralize a lot of this procurement apparatus in the city. And I just would like an update on where we're at with that initiative, if it has gone anywhere. And I just think this is a really important conversation this afternoon. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Councillor Breeden. I am going to ask Councillor Lara, District 6. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any opening statements. I'm just here to listen and ask questions today.
Thank you. Councillor Rurel, District 4. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Mejia, and thank you to all the panelists, and thank you for everyone who's in attendance. I want to just give a big shout out to the whole OI team on their work and what they have done in such a short period of time. We are starting to see larger dollar contracts getting awarded to MWBEs, and also us as a council, along with the administration, passing Chapter 30B. What I would love to do is just kind of get deeper into the data and just trying to see if there's any other areas of gap that we're missing when it comes to MWBEs. but looking forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Rowell. So I'll just start briefly with some opening remarks. You know, the 2020 disparity study indicated a disproportionate underutilization of minority and women-owned businesses. In response, the mayor issued an executive order to address and improve the outcomes by committing to a utilization goal of at least 25% contracting with minority and women-owned businesses across all contracts awarded in any fiscal year. Today, we're here to learn a little bit about some of the changes that have been made and some of those outcomes, and creating transparency around this incredibly important work for our small businesses and our micro businesses. I mentioned micro businesses because they were not addressed in the disparity study, nor are small businesses defined in a way that allows us to separate small from micro businesses in a way that will ensure we are responding to their needs appropriately. Micro businesses are typically sole proprietors of 1 to 2 person operation shops and make less than $1 million in gross profit a year. 50% of all businesses started as sole proprietors. Of the 10 million businesses started in 2022, 100% said that access to capital was their biggest concern. Access to cash is a bigger barrier to many micro and small businesses. Once a micro or small business is given an opportunity to do business with the city of Boston, working capital is often an issue. The payment schedule is inconsistent, and with the financial constraints of many micro and small businesses, a quick pay policy for small businesses needs to be explored in order to ensure minority and women-owned micro and or small businesses have the cash flow needed to fully participate and scale. While micro businesses in particular benefit the most from grants, these one-off only support a few. The City of Boston, I'm looking forward to ensuring that we can help support them and being more intentional behind their support for micro and small businesses. This can only be done by placing a more comprehensive support system for them, especially around funding. The city should consider replicating the model they have around housing by working with funders to support and expand the capacity of micro and small businesses. Various departments across the City of Boston have their own procurement process, which makes working for the City of Boston even harder. Some departments like the BHA continue to implement a hand delivery method, which is antiquated and inaccessible to most who have never done business and or would like to. We need to create more consistency across departments so that the process is more intuitive and easy to navigate, especially for new businesses that are seeking the opportunity to work with the City of Boston. I would also like to know more about any expansion efforts to certification. Has there been an analysis of the percentage of businesses that are in the system in comparison to those that exist in the city, and what outreach efforts have been made, as well as the technical support and assistance provided? An important component to creating access to opportunities for minority and women-owned business is an effective communication strategy, which targets minority and women-owned businesses to ensure that a broader population of businesses are notified about the opportunities to bid on contracts for all city agencies and quasi-public organizations funded by the City of Boston. Furthermore, and I'm almost done, the cultural sensitivity of these advertisements, outreach efforts, and technical assistance support are also important and necessary steps to ensure small, micro, minority, and women-owned businesses are fully aware of existing and future contracting opportunities, and thus the effectiveness of these efforts must be evaluated. I look forward to learning and working together to ensure our micro and small businesses can access city contracting, and that there is transparency around this process, and that we're holding ourselves and the administration accountable to what that looks like. And before we jump into the community panel, I just wanted to thank BECMA and Amplify Latinx and other groups that have worked with our office in helping us identify the data, share the issues that some of the constituents that they work with have faced. And I also want to uplift that and also point out that, you know, we are under a new administration and really incredibly hopeful for our where we can go with this. And I want to just note for the record that whenever you participate in a hearing, at least my hope is that when we're here in these spaces, is that we seize these moments to learn from each other, to identify what are the solutions, so that we can really focus in what we need to do. And it's not just about calling people out. It's really an opportunity for us to take those notes and utilize what we learn in this space to do something about it in collaboration with the administration. So I hope that as we continue to go through this conversation today, that it's within that spirit that we're all operating under. So with that, I am going to now kick things off with our community panel. And I'm going to ask if you could please introduce yourself for the record, your name, title, and affiliation before presenting. And I'm going to start off with Luis Roman, who is with Amplify Latinx, a board member and the architect of the Power Up program. Luis, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, councilors, panelists, and anybody participating. My name is Luis Roman, and I've been with Amplify Latinx since September of last year. I'm the treasurer and a board member. Prior to that, my professional experience is eclectic since I used to be a professor in academia. I worked for the financial sector a number of years, and more recently as a financial advisor, business consultant. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, Luis, pero in addition to introducing yourself, ahora you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks, and just help us understand and help us dive in a little bit deeper into the data and some of the things that you have learned as you navigate and helping to support small businesses.
Absolutely. So for those new or not that familiar with Amplify Latinx, it's a nonprofit organization with overreaching goals fundamental to upward mobility within the Latino community. They positively impact the Latino community by helping across main pillars such as policy and advocacy, leadership representation, and economic opportunity. Why organizations like these are essential can be answered in several ways. I want to stick today perhaps to some recent data research that has been conducted by a number of different organizations. For example, the Boston Foundation underscores how Latinx people drive population and small business growth, which are critical to the economic and social prosperity of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Also, in a recent poll conducted by Mask Inc., it describes in there how entrepreneurs of color have been helping counter a decade-long decline in business activity, replenishing regional economies, and building local wealth, as Latino-owned businesses grew by 34% over that decade compared to just 1% for all others. All of these are uplifting statistics, but they need to be supported by intentional actions to help remove unnecessary hurdles. Unfortunately, this community is challenged by social, political, educational, and economic disparities that have blocked access to high-wage, high-income sectors driving the economy in Massachusetts, and that contributing to a vast racial income and wealth gaps. And although research supports how entrepreneurship can dramatically increase income and wealth and reduce racial disparities for small businesses, Latinx businesses still lack equitable access to capital, government contracts, and political power. One way to look at this, while 20% of entrepreneurs are people of color in Massachusetts, neighborhoods with people of color receive just about 10% of small business loans dollars in 2018. That's something that was published by Maskint in one of their research papers. And one way how Amplify Latinx has helped small businesses is through their Power Up program, which is geared to small business community. It's a program that it supports key goals of a Massachusetts Latino Advisory Commission as it works to build Latinx small business capacity, increase access to capital, build stronger cross-sector connections and business network, foster equity on state boards and commissions, demystify government contracting, and bolster supply diversity programming through culturally affirming and bilingual support. It's been successful for the record in 2022, it helped about 66 small businesses. Out of 42 of those, they were able to help them stabilize or become profitable financially speaking. It guided 30 of those businesses to develop capital readiness and digital transformations, and it helped to stabilize about 80 different jobs and create 13 new jobs in those businesses. In a more recent project that PowerUp has undertaken, they are working with the communities of Lawrence and Springfield, addressing the needs of the microbusiness needs of the Latino-owned childcare small businesses, recognizing the state's childcare crisis. And these are businesses where they are mostly led and owned by women of color, and they've been struggling to keep the door open, and only about 20% of those shuttered during the pandemic are still closed. And many of those businesses still need capacity to build and business development support to thrive. We also work always in a collaborative way, partnering with other reputable organizations in the state and in the country, such as Local Initiative Support Corporation, LISC, Massachusetts Association of Community Development Corporation, the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, and basically we advocate for increased small business funding and technical assistance, diversity in state procurement, and changes and jumpstarting the process of leveling the playing field for Black and Latino businesses to secure contracts.
Gracias. Thank you, Louis. Thank you for that. I am going to switch things up a little bit in this. I'm always all about telling a story. So now that Louis has laid down the foundation for some of the challenges specifically some of the Latino businesses have faced, I'm going to move on to, I'm going to ask Argentina, who is a small business owner, to be next. And then Darian, I'm going to go to you, Mr. Johnson, just so you know, I'm just switching things up. Just go with it, okay? So Argentina, I'm going to invite you. Argentina, para dejarte saber, me gustaría que tú puedas, si estás disponible ahora, para hablar sobre tu experiencia como una persona navegando el sistema de los contratos aquí en la ciudad de Boston. ¿Cuáles han sido las cosas que te han ayudado? ¿Cuáles han sido las necesidades que has tenido? Y si nos puedes hablar un poco de tu experiencia. La idea es que podemos aprender de ti, cómo podemos hacer las cosas mucho más fácil para los negociantes como tú.
Buenas tardes, soy Argentina Villar, propietaria de LV Home Improvement and Cleaning, una compañía de construcción y limpieza. Para mí, en realidad, navegar en lo que es el portal de la ciudad de Boston para aplicar para los bids es un poco complicado, ya que yo me considero que fui muy afortunada cuando tuve la oportunidad de aplicar por primera vez, porque tuve la ayuda de JPNDC con Carlos Espinosa. Por eso pude aplicar, porque en realidad yo entiendo que primeramente el idioma, que solamente está en inglés, además, esa es una barrera para mí, además de que las preguntas, el formulario que hay que llenar, en realidad son en términos que son como términos legales, un poco jurídicos. Yo entiendo que también eso lo harán para cuidarse de alguna demanda o algo, pero creo que debe de ser como palabras que sean más sencillas para nosotros, como aplicar porque son palabras que a veces uno no las entiende, entonces como que sea un estándar y que además de eso se pueden hacer como talleres para informar a uno sobre cómo llenar el formulario y eso, porque se hace en realidad, cuando tú lo vas a hacer sola es difícil.
Disculpe, ¿me permite para que quede en el récord? Voy a decirlo al inglés.
Sí, por favor.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Argentina, and I'm the owner of LB Home Improvement and Cleaning Inc. So I gotta say that the procurement process with the city, it's complicated to work with the bids, but I was fortunate enough that Carlos Espinosa from JPNDC was able to help me with this process. So I have to say that the language barrier is an issue. The forms are all in English. All of the questions are in English. And also, not only that they're in English, but also there are a lot of legalese vocabulary there. So that's some of the barriers that I see. ¿Puede continuar, por favor?
También yo digo que sería bueno como si ellos hicieran como talleres para enseñar a uno cómo es el procedimiento y que hagan como preguntas estándares. Que se haga como un template, un estándar de un formulario que sea más fácil, más discerniente para nosotros lo que estamos aplicando.
I also would like to see some trainings to teach us how to apply, and also the application forms to be in a standard form level, so it will be easier for us to apply.
Tuve la oportunidad durante la pandemia gané lo que fue un bid que se llamaba Emergency Supplement Cleaning durante el COVID-19 y lo obtuve, pero también otra de las cosas que yo veo que nos perjudica a nosotros como dueños de negocio es que en realidad se basa más, es tú el que gana ahí, no es el que haga un buen trabajo. Por ejemplo, yo tuve el bid por un año y todo el mundo ahí en el trabajo que hacía mi compañía, todos estaban felices, decían que estábamos haciendo un excelente trabajo, que se ve la diferencia, pero en realidad no ahí en la ciudad no importa el trabajo que tú hagas. Si lo que importa es, por ejemplo, que dé el costo más barato. Entonces yo entiendo que también para reducir los gastos y cosas, pero creo que se debe tomar en cuenta que si tú haces un trabajo bueno, un trabajo que tú estás luchando para seguir con eso, no una persona se da cuenta que tú lo tienes, vamos a poner un precio, él le baja $5, tú lo tienes a 25, él lo pone a 20 y él gana dándote un buen trabajo. Entonces, en realidad, todo el que trabaja en esto es porque tú tienes que pagar a tus empleados, tu seguro, todas tus cosas, no puedes aplicar para solamente tú aplicar y ganar, entonces tener pérdidas.
And I also had the opportunity to get a bid for a year during the COVID-19. But also I felt like businesses can get hurt based on the bid that they get for 1 year. For example, in my company, everyone seemed happy with the work that we were doing, and they were seeing the difference that we were making. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you do a good job, because they want the services to be paid cheaper. You know, they don't want to pay the price that we asked for. So they're saying we're doing a good job, but they don't want to keep paying that price. Instead, let's say they're offering to pay $25 an hour, and then they want my company to clean or provide the service for less. Let's say the other person takes $5, and then I have only make $20. So they say that I do a good job, but they don't think about my company. For example, I have to pay insurance, I have to pay employees, and so I see that my company is just, instead of getting income or making more money, it's seeing losses.
Por ahora es todo lo que tengo que decir. Muchísimas gracias.
Wow.
That's all I have to share for now. Thank you.
Y en buen tiempo, Argentina. Tus 5 minutos ahí bien hecho. Gracias. Okay. I am going to now ask Mr. Johnson from the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, another thought partner with our office, and we were really grateful for your leadership and insight and getting us here. So you now have 5 minutes and the floor, and then I'm going to go to Rafael, Danielito Guzman, and then Roberto. So just wanted to let you know what the order is so that you know that you're up next. So Mr. Johnson, then followed by Mr. Guzman. Mr. Johnson, you have 5 minutes and the floor.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chair Mejia, President Flynn, the Honorable City Councilor. On behalf of the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts and our members, I'm here today to offer input on docket 0253. BECMA was founded as a result of the wealth disparities we see in communities of color, but we must look at our own and in our own communities and state and local governments to address and eliminate the wealth disparities we see in our communities, and in this case, contracting with the City of Boston. BECMA was founded to increase the number of Black businesses getting their fair share of the economic development within our state. BECMA centers our work around 4 pillars: entrepreneurship, placement, commerce, and ownership. And these are the ways in which we seek to eliminate the racial wealth gap within our state. Supporting entrepreneurs and their businesses is vital to doing our mission-driven work and frankly, make Boston what it is today. In 2019, BECMA presented to then Mayor Walsh on how to address the city's supply diversity issues within that meeting, BECMA advocated for several tangible ways in which the city can address its diversity in contracting. This included creating accountability measures, such as setting funds aside for a senior level position to address supplier diversity issues, allocate more money for personnel and technical assistance, and finally abiding by the city's own rules and regulations by following the Boston City Council's promoting equity in the City of Boston's contracts. And in 2021, BECMA collaborated and supported the city to increase the number of minority and women-owned businesses. Later, Mayor Wu introduced the Sheltered Market Program to the City Council as an order to designate 6 city contracts to minority-owned and women-owned businesses. Later on, in December 2022, the City Council approved the Shelter Market Program, and within months of its completion, the mayor introduced an order to bring it to full scale. A lot of progress has been made, but we all know that in order to close the opportunity gaps within the city, we must continue to be creative and look forward. And today I'm here to actualize the policies that have been put in place by the previous and current administrations, as well as looking at new ways to do outreach to MBEs, WBEs on how we can help them compete so they can thrive in Boston. And I just want to give us a feedback on a survey we did in September of 2022 with Massing Polling in partnership with the Coalition for an Equitable Economy, and as was BECMA, which conducted a study based upon feedback from 3,200 Massachusetts small business owners. 500 of those respondents were Black business owners and 35% were from Suffolk County. And we found the following. In the last 2 years, 26% of the Black respondents contracted with a local government versus 19% for the overall set of small business owners. 5% of Black respondents indicated that they would like to do business with anchor institutions, which includes local government, in the future versus the overall set of respondents at 41%. When asked how hard has it been to get businesses from local governments and anchor institutions, 60% of Black respondents indicated somewhat or very hard versus the overall group at 57%, which is similar in the aggregate. The causes of the issues were more distinct. Too much paperwork, do not know about opportunities, would need upfront capital, or do not believe we will win in a competitive bid process. And another is slow payment terms are an acute issue for Black business owners who are often undercapitalized and have little to no working capital to cover extended payment terms. We recommend the following to improve and sustain significant bidding outcomes for Black-owned firms as prime or subcontractors on the City of Boston. 1, set, track, and report on contract goals by departments and prime contractors to ensure that minority and women-owned businesses are not being unfairly and unlawfully excluded from equal contracting opportunities. This was indicated as a key recommendation in the 2020 disparity study. The City of Boston to review and hold departments accountable to supplier diversity in contracts, specific goals on the annual basis. 3, publish on its website a dashboard's goals to actual disaggregate by race of bidder by City of Boston department and prime contractors. Continue to hire and retain adequate staff to dedicate to supply diversity. Maintain a publicly available calendar of all known upcoming contracting opportunities, including the date of the opportunity, its post date, and its bid date, and regularly update a public dashboard with disaggregated procurement data. And also, lastly, contract with BECMA and other community-based organizations for culturally sensitive outreach and assistance. We at BECMA look forward to working with this council, the Mayor Wu's administration, and key stakeholders so we can ensure the prosperity of our city and our Commonwealth for generations to come. Thank you for your time. Thank you for our time.
Wow. Mr. Johnson, you got your 5 minutes. Good job. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Yes, everybody gets a 5-minute warning here, okay? You get 5 minutes. Mr. Danielito Guzman, you have 5 minutes and the floor to help us understand this conversation from your lived experience.
I just want to say thank you to Darian. He did a great presentation. So my name is Rafael Guzman, Rafael Danielito Guzman. It's my nickname. I've been in the construction business since '94. I'm an electrical engineer by education, UMass Amherst. I've also had some master's studies at Boston University, and I've done a lot of work for the city of Boston over the year. I work all over New England in construction. I want to make a correction to what Councilwoman Mejia said about ownership. The ownership of this company is actually my son, Benny Guzman, and who used to be my secretary 20 plus years ago. I'm in the process of passing on the baton. I'm now doing real estate. So I'm very happy to be here. This is, I think, very important. And hopefully we'll have results. So I have a lot of stories to tell, so I'll be fast. And I'll start by telling you I did a job for Mayor Menino in the 90s, late 90s, the Tobin building in Roxbury. I think it's a community center, okay? And I was doing selective demolition, and we were doing asbestos abatement. And at the time in Boston, you had a 50-50 rule for construction. 50% of the workforce have to be from Boston. Well, we only got one. And we had, I forget, over 20 people working at our job for like 3 months, the whole summer. I believe it was 1998, okay? So workforce development, training, opportunity for minority folks in Boston is lacking, my personal opinion. And I can speak about Lawrence. Lawrence has most asbestos and demolition working per capita of any other place in the United States of America. And that's because we made it so in the late 90s because we set up a school, privately held school, to train people on construction. There is right now a lack of workers in Boston to work in construction, even though the city of Boston from 23 to 27, they have $3.6 billion that they want to spend on capital expenditures. Okay, I want to touch on what Darian touched about payment and access to capital for small businesses, especially minority businesses. Okay, in our work, construction, from the bulk of us, we do work as a subcontractor, working for a general contractor, and the average first payment on a public job in Boston takes 60 days to get paid, folks. 60 days to get paid. And yet you are paying prevailing wages. Like right now, we're working at the McCormick building, and those guys are making $70 an hour. So imagine if you have 10 people working there, okay, and you have to wait 60 days to get your first payment. Most contractors, minority contractors, couldn't afford that because, like you said, there's no access to capital, there's no access to cash. And that's something that we have to address as a community, in my opinion, if you ever want to get to the goal of the 25% that the city of Boston has. So I want to talk about the prompt payment law by the federal government. The federal government forces their GC, general contractor or construction managers, to pay their subcontractors within 15 days after they start. But more importantly, in Boston, it's 30 days, by the way, okay? In Boston, there is no accountability or supervision. So me as a minority contractor, because I've been certified as an MBE or a DBE, by SOMBA or the SDO now, I go work for Suffolk Construction at Harvard University, and I have to work 60 days for the first payment, sometimes even more. That needs to change if minority contractors are to survive. And finally, accountability supervision. Those are possible things I wanted to say because they will cover everything. There has to be accountability. We have to hold other departments to the same standard. You have different departments for like Boston Housing per se. They have different rules than another department, the development community in Boston. That they have to be held to the same standard. Everybody has to have the same process so that everybody can see the same process on a monthly basis. Like Darian was saying, we have to hold the departments accountable. If they have a goal of 25% minority of the money they're going to spend, we have to see that they're doing that, and we don't do that. And that's all I have to say.
Wow, okay. Danielito, and you did it under the 5 minutes. Muy bien, tú tienes un tiempo más.
Now, Darian covered everything for me, so thank you, Darian.
Okay, all right. Good job. Thank you, guys. Really do appreciate you all speaking your truth and helping us understand what the lived experience looks like, and also those who are working in the space. So we're going to end our community panel with our last speaker, who is Roberto Green, the owner of Las Palmas, the co-owner of Las Palmas, as well as an entrepreneur and someone who has some really great ideas in ways that we can help support businesses scale and meet the moment. So Roberto, you now have the floor and 5 minutes también.
Beautiful. Thank you, Julia. First and foremost, thank you guys for your time, and thank you guys for bringing up this this issue, this matter that we really need to resolve. Me as a business owner, just some back ends. I used to work for State Street Bank and JP Morgan. I then transitioned to the restaurant world. We now currently own 3 restaurant locations, one in MIT, one in Harvard, and one in Rosendale. Aside from that, I'm also a real estate investor and developer. I did that out of, the pandemic. It was very difficult navigating through the pandemic. Over 60% of the restaurants closed. As you can imagine, it was a very difficult time. One of the main reasons why we stayed open and stayed afloat was because we were able to really try to figure out ways to get contracts with World Central Kitchen and Off Their Plate. It was very difficult to find these types of organizations to work with. Fortunately, we were one of like a handful that were able to work with these organizations, and we were able to provide food and meals for first responders. But we also noticed that, how difficult it was to really get these types of contracts. And even now, after COVID happened, we're trying to find our way to get contracts, because where we're located now in Rosendale, it's not a high foot traffic location. As you guys know, labor costs have increased. Minimum wage increased in Boston to $15 per hour. Rent has increased. The cost of goods has increased. Taxes are obviously still there. And then now we have no access to parking because of a lot of the bike lanes. So a lot of the restaurants are taking massive hits, and we see that with the Space Grant program, where now they're offering to subsidize or pay businesses to take over restaurants that are not open, and they're closing because of these factors. We have all these high increases in labor costs. We have no access to capital. I'm actually trying to purchase a building right now in Hyde Park, and I can't even tell you guys how many banks have denied us, even though we generate over $500,000 in revenue. And it's just been quite a challenge to even get funding, and the reason why we want to buy a building is because obviously we're trying to build equity, not just renting all the time. And we're trying to change the model when it comes to the restaurant industry, right? The rents are ridiculously high. God forbid you have, any type of situation where you're not able to produce meals, or it's a low season, and you still have that high rent eating your profits. So one of the ways that we wanted to tackle that was to buy a restaurant, buy a building, a commercial building with a restaurant. But as everybody has mentioned, getting access to capital has been quite difficult. In addition to that, it's really hard to navigate to get these contracts. Like we're able and we have the capacity to take on contracts. We've done anywhere between 100 to 500 meals per day. So it's not a matter of, us not being able to produce and not being equipped. It's just that we don't have either the right resources or the accessibility to get these contracts. I've asked for over 2 years, how I can get a contract with the city of Boston, and I always get the runaround. I never get a direct answer. Okay, go to this website and apply to this, and you'll be considered, or just submit an application, and we'll offer you guys what's available. So that's one of the main challenges that I've had. And I'm coming from corporate. I do have business background. I have financial education. I have college education as well. A lot of mentors and a lot of connections in the city. And even still with that, I'm still not able to find contracts. And then when we do submit a contract, it's like a 10, 15 pager where we have to really dissect and get to a granular level with all the logistics of what we need of how we're going to produce for the contract. And then they always say, they never give us like a minimum or a high price bid. It's always like, just give us your lowest and your best, and lowest and best to me, it's like, I'm a smaller business right now. So I know for a fact, a larger corporation who can cut their costs in a different ways, they can give better budgets. So we never end up getting the contract. But we never even get feedback either as far as what we need to do to improve to get to these types of contracts. So those are just some of the main challenges that we've been facing as a small business over the past 6 years.
Thank you. Thank you. And Roberto, I also wanted to acknowledge that you finished under the 5-minute mark. I am very impressed with this panel. Thank you. So I'm going to open up the floor before we move on to the administration. And I also want to let central staff know that Chief Iru is in the attendees panel with his hand up, wanting to just acknowledge that he has his hand up. So wanted to just note that in case you all need to know that. I am going to, so first, before we dive into questions, I just really wanted to thank our community panel for really helping to set the stage for what it's like to be a small business or an entrepreneur trying to grow your business here. Or to even have access to opportunity. And I also want to state that since we've been following this now since 2020 when I first came into office, to really help support small businesses navigate what I feel like is trying to crack the Da Vinci Code when you're just trying to even see if you can get a contract, just the number of different steps that you have to take. And I do know that the administration over the last few years has really been leaning into that conversation and really figuring out how to support small businesses. So I remain hopeful that, especially since we have the chief of Opportunity and Inclusion was also the former president of BECMA, I really do believe that we are now at a point of really being able to close that gap. And so really looking forward to his presentation when we call on our administration panel. So, but for now, I am going to ask my colleagues, opening up the floor for questions, and we're going to start again in the order of arrival. And I wanted to just make note that you too will have 5 minutes, and I will let you know if you go over, and if, give you an extra minute if you need it. But I'm going now to President Flynn. You now have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know one of the panelists mentioned a recommendation that the City of Boston provide some training about how to look for the application, how to complete the application, what to look for in an application. So I just wanted to follow up on that recommendation. I think it's a great recommendation. Does the city right now provide any outreach to to any of you, to any small businesses that might be interested in various contracts and how to kind of navigate the application system or the application process.
I'm going to ask Erika or Gabriela to translate that just in case for Argentina in particular. So if you could ask that question in Spanish for the record, that would be great.
Ustedes, perdón, ¿está escuchando en español, Argentina? We are doing simultaneous interpretation. I'm not sure if she's listening.
Sí, estoy escuchando.
Okay.
Argentina, la pregunta era sobre el entrenamiento. Sé que había hablado de la necesidad y el presidente del concejal quiere saber si han tenido charlas o ha tenido acceso a estos tipos de talleres o no.
No, nunca he tenido la oportunidad de participar en un taller referente a...
I have never had the opportunity to have be part of a training or hold on, can you repeat that again? ¿Puede repetir, por favor? Argentina, ¿podría repetir su respuesta?
No, que yo digo que nunca he tenido la oportunidad de participar en un evento de entrenamiento.
Okay. I have never had the opportunity to participate in a training.
Can I ask a quick?
Yes, go ahead, Danielito.
Oh, is this interactive? I mean, when you ask questions like Councilman Efling asked a question, can we answer the question?
You can, but the way that in this forum it goes through the chair. So what I do is I ask the question, or my colleague asks the question, and then you raise your hand, and then we call on you. So
okay,
that
all right.
if you want to answer the question, please feel free.
So to his question, Mr. Flynn, the old summer office used to go around the state because SOMBA is the certifying body for the city of Boston. So, for instance, I'm an MB, Minority Business Enterprise, or DB, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, WB, Women Business Enterprise. Now the SDO does that, the Supply Diversity Office at the state level. And it's accepted by other municipalities and cities and towns at the Commonwealth level, right? However, each town or each city handle their population different ways. Now, the city of Boston, the last training that I was aware of was under Mayor Menino at the end of the 20th century. I haven't seen the city of Boston providing training to their population or to the small business community, especially the minority community, in many, many years. The SBA does it, the SDO still do it, but I don't think the city of Boston is doing that.
Thank you. Here's my recommendation. Let's do some training. And my final question is to anyone that might want to answer this. Is there a list of potential contracts that you can look through on the internet or on paper? Is there a list of contracts that you can look at that you might be eligible for, that you might be interested in, that you might want to learn more about, that's kind of in one document or one area that's easy to find, easy to look at, and maybe it gives you an opportunity to take a look at it and see what's available and to gauge your interest?
I see, Danielito, you have your hand up. Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, so that's a very, very good question, Mr. Flynn. So let me talk about the federal government for a sec, okay? So the federal government, every agency, and there are hundreds and hundreds of agencies that work for the federal government, as you know. So I started with the GSA that handles all the buildings for the federal government, with the SBA itself. They put out a budget every year, and they put a capital plan, the capital expenditures, including all the projects that are slated to be completed within X number of time. Like Boston put out its plan 23, 27, where the capital plan calls for $3.6 billion, fixing schools, fixing buildings, so on and so forth. But it's not a comprehensive document, like you ask. So I can go right now into the Army, and they have a small business, they call it a small business something, a small business, I call it contracting officer, let's say. They put out on October of every year, can you know where that happened? They put out how much they're going to spend in the projects that are coming out within a 12-month period, so that we, as minorities, can tell the government, look, I'm interested in that project. Can you make that project a minority business set aside? DBE, women-owned, MBE, whatever certification I have. Because what we're trying to do today is we have the whole field to everybody, right? Everybody compete, right? But minorities, we cannot compete on a fair playing ground because we don't have the resources to do so. This is why we're here today, right? Create a playing field that is more equitable to us, right? Because we cannot compete. So the federal government, what they do is they give us the opportunity to call, let's say, Boston Housing and say, look, on this particular housing development, you have a painting job coming out or a cleaning job coming out. Can you make it a minority set aside? And the federal government does that, right? In addition to that, they have the 8A program, the Hub Zone program, that try to hire people like ourselves that don't have the resources as the general population. I hope that answers this.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for that, Danielito. And President Flynn, before I move on to the next, my other colleague, I'd love to just give Darian, Mr. Johnson from BECMA, an opportunity to kind of like help answer that, because he had made some recommendations about a database and ways to help support. So, Mr. Johnson, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to also chime in here with that before we move on, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think that'd be really helpful. And one of the things that I would say, I represent BECMA here as on the policy side of things, but when we talk, our organization is broken up by a membership base, and so having that type of one-time shop where you can go to and be able to look for those things, that would definitely be very helpful, and we can easily be able to disseminate that information to our members, specifically here in Boston. So I think that anything that makes it a lot easier for folks, just knowing that like a lot of times business owners are the administrators, the operators of their own business, and whatever can make it easier for them, especially the ones that might not have the employees or the capacity, it does go a long way to making it a lot easier for them. So anytime you can make information easy to be digestible and reachable, I think it always is helpful.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to, I know that Councilor Breeden said that she had to step out for another meeting, but will be returning. So I am going to go next to Councilor, and I also wanted to note before we keep moving is that my co-sponsor of this hearing order, Councilor Anderson, has joined us as well. Thank you, Councilor Anderson. We're just going through the process of questions based on the first panel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologies for being delayed. I had a previous commitment. I apologize and really wanted to be here. Thank you so much to the community members, BECMA, and all the other organizations that are here today. I was hoping, if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, to hold my questions for after the administration presents. I think it probably makes sense for me. I'd like to hear their presentation and responses. And then I think it'll probably save us time on questioning as well, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Okay. And in terms of the community members, we usually make sure that we don't hold you all hostage, and you're more than welcome to stay to listen into the administration panel as well. So I'm moving on next to Councillor Lara. You now have the floor. Okay. I'm going to call Councillor Lara back in a minute, but I'm going to go to Councillor Rorell of District 4. If you are here with us, you now.
Yes, thank you, Chair Mejia, and thank you to the panelists for sharing. These are things that we hear as councilors often from our businesses and those who are seeking contracts with the city of Boston. And one thing that always I go back to, and I think I forgot the gentleman's, Raphael brought up, is the payment. And I guess this question to Raphael and also Darian is, I think the payment on getting it out the door seems like it's a system issue. And I guess, like, have we thought about any recommendations on how to, on other ways, right? If we can't fix the system issue, like the 60 days to get paid, like what other recommendations can the city step up to help support those who have contracts with maintaining the capital, the funds that they have? Like, is it partnering and collaborating with Home Depots or Lowe's, or is it, like other ways on how we think we can make that happen?
So either Mr. Johnson or Mr. Guzman, either one of you want to share?
I'll be more than happy to answer that question, because that is the number one question. Because getting paid, we're in business to make money. Everybody is, okay? So how do you do it? You do it by following your own systems, your own processes, right? So let me tell you how it works, right? I go do a job, say, for housing in Boston Housing, right? And I'm working for Darian. He's the GC. He's software construction. And my contract is $800,000, right? Supposed to be there for 3 months. Probably have 10 guys working. I don't know what I'm doing, but this is, so, let's suppose, right? In order for software construction to get paid as the GC, they have to get from me an affidavit that say that I've been paid. So I put in my requisition at the end of the month. They take the requisition. I need to notarize that document. And they send me a document that says that I've been paid. But the document comes before the payment. So the city of Boston, whoever's looking over this project, is supposed to look and say, okay, Raphael has been paid. They don't do that. The GC is saying we've been paid, but they don't look at those documents. They don't call it, hey, have you been paid? They don't do that. The federal government does that. Not every state, not every federal agency does it, but the Navy does it. If you're a subcontractor, remember, folks, the folks that are financing all projects, federal, state, local, whatever you want to call it, are the subcontractors, because we are paying our workers weekly. And we get to put in a requisition once a month. So you want to help us, subcontractors, pass the prompt payment law, because you cannot put out a project if you don't have the funds. If you're the city of Lawrence, if you're the city of Boston, you cannot put it out. You have the funds. They already has been set aside in the bank, sitting to pay this general contractor or this contractor, right? But the contractor has to follow a process. You have the process. What you don't have is the enforcement and the supervision.
Yep.
Supervise it. Now, if you want to help the little guys like us, make it such that the GC pay us every 15 days. Pay them every 15 days. So they pay us. So I will tell you another thing. There's a law that...
1 second. Tell us that one more thing, but I believe that I was going to call you Dr. Brian. Councilor Roel was going to ask a question. I heard.
Please. Yeah.
Oh, no. I was just saying thank you. Thank you for that. And I wasn't aware that that process was what it sounds like is broken. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Massachusetts is one of the most progressive states in the country, as we all know, right? Massachusetts passed a law that's called pay when paid. So when we sign the contract with a general contractor, it's a subcontractor. Remember, we're financing the stuff. We're financing the work, okay? All GCs have a pay when paid clause in the contract. Guess what? On private jobs, it's illegal. It's against the state regulations. It was passed by the legislation at the state level. But on public jobs, it's not. Ironically, it's not. In other words, GC will not pay me, I haven't been paid. And a lot of GC use that as an excuse, even though they've been paid, not to pay the subs. And that's a fact. You can talk to, if we were to have subcontractors here, they will tell us something. Sorry, Golia, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions here.
Yeah, I also just wanted to make sure, in the interest of just, before we move on, just Councilor Roel, do you want to hear from BECMA or from Amplify Latinx or anyone else?
Anyone else who wants to answer the question, I'm happy to hear.
Because I think it's important, like, that we have community, and the people who are doing the work and living the realities have the best ideas in terms of how we can support businesses. So Mr. Johnson, Roberto, or Luis, before we move on to my other colleague, I just want to make sure that you all have an opportunity, if you want to chime in on how, what are some of the things that we could do differently. Please use the mic. This is your opportunity to let us know what we can be doing.
I just want to just add that I think one is I would love, Chair and Councilor Roel, I would love to, look at the procedures right now, but I do think there is, from what was just said around the timing of those payments, that is an issue that we've here at BECMA constantly and consistently. But I think part of that is to kind of look at the structures that's already in play and how we can brainstorm and think about those things together. I don't have a one-size-fits-all solution per se, but I think there are some different things we can definitely go about. And just for the sake of time, would love to, have a conversation off after, and how we can, go forward and kind of come up with some solutions together.
Thank you. And, I really do hope that you all as panelists can stay on when the administration goes, because I really do believe that it's important for all of us to have the same conversation. So for those who don't have time constraints, if you could stay on, we would really value your insight. So if you don't have any time constraints, please stay. I just have a few questions, because I really want to create an opportunity for us to move on to our, the next part of our discussion. But I'm just curious, for the community panelists, if you could just tell me a little bit about the supplier portal and your ability to navigate it. I'd love to be able to just kind of, a 30-second elevator pitch of, like, if you had to share your experience with it, what would it look like? And as you share, I'd love to know, what are some of the ways you think the administration, what can we do to improve the system that is, consistent either with paperwork or, the navigating with ease, just like really helping us understand what that would look like. And there's been a lot of mention about advertising, and I'm wondering if you could share how businesses currently find contracts. What do you think about the city of Boston, in terms of what we can do to expand the way we share information about new opportunities? And what other ways can the city, what else can we do to support small businesses? Those are 3 high-level questions that I have, and I'm just curious if you all can just help us understand what it looks like. And the reason why I'm asking those questions is because I know that we have a lot of money in the city of Boston. And I know that we're now in a moment where everybody wants to make sure that we close the wealth gap that we've been talking about now for decades. So this is really an opportunity for us to figure out what can we do differently. And I want to lean in on the supplier portal specifically, because I know that is one of the most challenging things that I've heard from a lot of constituents in navigating that system. Danielito, I know you're going to go first.
Listen, remember, you've given me a lollipop. I've been doing this for 30 years. And every mistake is a contract that can be done. It's a subcontract that can be, I've done it. And I'm so glad you folks are doing this, but I really, really hope that this doesn't end here, that you guys take it to the next level, because you can do great good. And small businesses, especially minority businesses, they don't have to go out of business because they're not getting paid or they're not getting the opportunity. So this is from the Central Register, okay? The Central Register is the place that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts put all their projects. And the information here comes from all cities and towns. So you talk about the Boston portal, right? Sometimes you find a project here and you don't see it in the Boston portal. There's no consistency. Somebody's not doing his or her job, right? Because the Boston portal is supposed to put every opportunity that the city has out there. It's the law, right? Just like the Central Register does. And sometimes vice versa. You see it in the portal, but you don't see it in the Central Register. This is what most contractors use in the Commonwealth to find opportunities, the Central Register. The Boston portal is an added benefit that is not necessarily working 100%.
Thank you for that. Mr. Johnson or Mr. Roman, can you talk a little bit about the type of technical assistance that you've had to provide some of your members in navigating, in terms of like how you're hearing about information, the different types of advertising techniques that you have seen be successful in other states that you think that we may want to adopt here in the city of Boston? Any lessons that you can share with us?
I want to tackle the outreach part of the initial question that you asked to this committee. I think first with supply diversity, when the office was created for statewide, it just had a lot of folks were really trying to navigate or just trying to reach out. And I think there's positives to the supply diversity office here in the city of Boston. I think one of the things that's I mentioned in the recommendation is this like intentional outreach and cultural outreach too as well, because what we also see is some of our members will say we've reached out or we've gotten the support we needed, but there are the ones that are outside of that scope. And we're also, as an organization that's statewide, trying to find out ways how we can be more inclusive. So I think that one of the ways that we definitely need to consider is what are the and there's language barriers here too to consider is, I think sometimes when we talk about, using the internet or using these other ways of advertising, sometimes there is some types of barriers for folks, especially older folks that may have an old mom and pop shop that might not really use the internet sometimes. So one of the things I would, I always consider is, really coming up with ways that what kind of partners that hit specific demographics to be very helpful in bringing in folks, especially around the supply diversity. Because sometimes I'll hear folks that have done interactions, but sometimes they haven't, and some folks will be like, oh, like I didn't even know that, or I didn't know where do I go now? And sometimes we're not a technical assistance shop, and I just want to make that clear. But what our organization does is we have a lot of relationships, and I just think about here in Massachusetts. One of the things that we've been able to do is I've been able to go across the states and really deal with different chief financial officers and across different municipalities and cities. And I would say that the one thing has been really helpful is I think that is that continual intentional reaching out to organizations that are maybe doing similar work or trying to be more helpful in terms of getting those financial opportunities. And what I mean by that is, if there are things that are coming out constantly that people need to know, if those organizations can be very helpful into disseminating that information, so the burden is not always on the city. I think that gets really tough because you're going to have so many folks reaching out to you consistently, and sometimes it's going to be hard to always get back to them. And I think sometimes when folks, especially when it's their livelihood, it can get really, folks can get really anxious and not sure. So I really do think that really taking a look at what are the organizations that you have been partners with. Obviously, BECMA is in that, but we need to make sure that outreach is, you're not always going to get everyone, but at the same time, you got to do your best to make sure that everybody feels included in the process. And I think that there's sometimes a situation where you have folks might not feel like they've heard back and others do, but maybe that's because of proximity to relationships already been established in the city. So I don't know if I answered everything, but that's kind of some of the things that you see.
You did, and I would just want to get one more question and maybe even a statement in before we move on to the administration panel. And one of the things that I would love to see the city is, like, we keep talking about a dashboard and accountability, but I think it's important for people to know why they didn't receive a contract, and then that there is some sort of system put in place so that you could provide them the feedback that they need, so that the next time they apply, that they're able to fix that issue, right? Because there's no sense of you reapplying to get a contract and you keep making the same mistakes, and there's really no technical assistance to help support you as you navigate. And then I also think that we need to be really transparent with the data. Like, I'd love to know how many businesses, how many attempts that they've made. I think that the more we know, the better that we're able to serve our constituents as they navigate this space. And last year during the budget process, during ARPA funding in particular, we advocated, and I just want to thank Chief Irugu for really helping to support this, is that we, I think it was either $350,000 or $500,000 to support minority immigrant businesses, because what we learned is that, yes, it's already hard enough to navigate the portal and to navigate becoming a contractor here in the city of Boston. It's even a harder when you are an immigrant-owned business, that you don't understand the language, that you don't understand what it's like to do business here in America, and that we need to add additional supports. And I think that there's a number of things happening here. It's how do we get people who know how to navigate the system to do it, and then how do we start from folks who don't even know that the system exists to know that the system exists so that they can navigate it too. I think it's just like a number of different layers as we continue to move through. And I see, Darren, you have your hand up, and then I'm gonna ask Roberto to close us out with this, because you have consistently have tried to secure business and you haven't done so. And I'd love for us to close out this panel with what you believe we should be doing more of. So I want you to give a thought to that, because you're gonna be closing us out. Darren, go ahead.
And I just want to, and thank you, Chair. And I just want to add, one thing that, I think, and giving a shout out to Chief Ito as well on just overall work on supply diversity. It's one of those things that the state and our business owners wanted, and the fact that we have it here in the state as well. Credit to you, Chief. And one of the things I want to add to what you mentioned is, yes, it is important to, make sure folks know what's happening, like if they don't get a contract, but I really want to emphasize on this idea of making sure that dates are available, when and why, like really entrusting that. I think, like I said, sometimes folks, if you're the administrator and the operator of your business, there's so much happening, and knowing these timelines and dates, and another thing that we also recommended too was support, because I know how much, we know how much it can be on staff. And so any additional support in supply diversity offices, like, maybe that is additional staff too as well, to be helpful in that process, because it is something that our business owners are saying they need these opportunities, these contracts, they want, its livelihoods are here as well. And so just, I just want to add on to what you said about support. That could also look like in terms of staffing, and then also just ensuring that it's also not at the end of when you don't get the contract, but right at the beginning, how do we keep people on the timeline that's needed in order to get after these contracts? I just want to also add that part to it too, because I think that's really important. So thank you.
Yes, I would love to see that portal also have a timeline in terms of the life of someone who has applied. What's, from the moment that you applied, what's the communication rollout, right? When are you going to find out about whether or not you have been awarded the contract? What are your next steps? Like, all of those things need to be clearly laid out and they should be consistent, because I think that that is where I feel the need is. And I hear you, Darian, like, the reason why we're having this hearing, it's not just to go, we need to do this. It's about listening to what we need to do. It's budget season now, and figuring out how we can support this work, right? Because in order for us to fix the problem, we need to be able to identify it and own it and say, here's the investments that we're going to make to help support. So Roberto, I'm going to end with you, and then we're going to transition to making sure that we have some time with the administration. Roberto, dale.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, it amazes me. Like I'm looking at the City of Boston supplier portal, and it's like, I've had such a hard time navigating through it. And it's just by looking at it, you can see that it's such an outdated system. It's not organized. If I'm looking for something for a restaurant, they just have like a whole bunch of different event names, start dates, end dates. And it's not really like technology driven. For us to be in the city of Boston, where you have Harvard University and MIT, and to see something like this, it's sad, honestly. We have all this technology, all these great universities. I just feel like there's just a huge disconnect here, as far as like the needs and the wants. Because, small businesses, they want it. Me personally, like, I'm not asking for a handout. Like, I'm confident in my product, my service. We get, 5-star reviews with catering. We work with corporate clients. We are able to produce. But there's just this huge disconnect, and there's just the tech factor of it, where we should be having a dashboard. One software system that I like is Submittable. For an example, like Submittable is just like a website that I've used, where if we apply for something, we get constant updates. It's in review, or we're looking at this, or you missed this document. Can you please upload this? It's just like a straight through process. And it's like, and we have all this technology coming out, plus artificial intelligence, which is now being implemented in a lot of businesses. I just feel like we really need to have this updated, because it shouldn't be as difficult as we're making it. We're just working with outdated systems. But if we organize the software, the technology aspect of connecting small businesses with the need that the city of Boston has in regards to contracts, I feel like there's just so much opportunity there for growth on all different levels. But again, it comes down to the technology. And I think it's identifying what the main issue is, and then coming up with the resolutions for it. And then just taking action. We can talk about this all we want, but at the end of the day, it's the taking action aspect of it. So I would love to see more technology in regards to making things more like technology is made to make things more simple, not more complicated. So.
Thank you, Roberto. And I hate to be, when you're chairing a hearing, you always have to be mindful of the time, because you want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be fully expressed. So I really do appreciate everybody's patience as we navigate through this conversation. So I'm going to ask the community panel to stay here. There might be opportunities for you all to keep being part of the dialogue. I do things non-traditionally. So stay here if you can. But I really do appreciate your testimony thus far. I'm going to move on to the administration panel, because I think that there's been a lot of really great work happening in this space. And so we're going to start off with Chief Irigu, then followed by Andre Lima, then Michael Miller, and then Jennifer Dufour. So Chief Irigu, you now have 5 minutes and the floor.
Sorry, did you just call on me?
Yes, I did.
All right. Well, Madam Chair and honorable city councilors, I want to thank you for this opportunity. And I really want to thank you for having the community go first. And I'm going to tell you why. Literally this entire time, me and my team, I'm actually very happy this is virtual and not in person, because if this were in person, you would have seen how jittery we were getting and how excited we were getting to be able to come up and talk, because everything that has been shared up until this point, we very much agree with, and you know, I'm hopeful that the information that's going to be shared by this team via the slides that they have, just to respond and kind of show visually what's going on, encourages the folks on the call, because certainly what's been brought up, the feedback and the ideas that have been shared are very encouraging to us, because they let us know that we're heading in the right direction and that we are responding to what we ourselves have been hearing from small business owners and from organizations on the ground. You know, Councillor, you mentioned at the top that there were other members of the administration that you wanted to be here, but I will let you know that whether invited or not, I would have jumped into this hearing, because this is my favorite topic, as you know. You and I have sat in hearings together about this that you've called, and I've certainly had the privilege of being in the Ionella chamber since May of 2019 to talk about this issue, when then Councillor Wu and then Councillor Janey brought a hearing order up to talk about discretionary spend with our businesses. And so proud to see BECMA on the call, and Amplify Latinx, and so many of the small business owners that we're hopeful to be able to do business with. And want to thank also members of the Coalition for an Equitable Economy. You know, we don't just see these organizations during these hearings. We see them every single day and talk with them every single day. And there are some programs that we're going to be launching shortly that have been built in partnership with these organizations. And we're very much looking forward to that, because it addresses some of the key issues that were brought up this afternoon. I could sit here and respond to every single thing that was brought up in a very happy way, but I want to not take up too much time and actually share this space with members of the administration, Andre Lima, who's the Director of Supplier and Workforce Diversity, and Mike and Jen, who are joining us from the Department of Strategic Procurement, just to share not just the progress we've made since we talked about this last year, but really what we're working on to immediately address all the really important feedback that we heard today. So I will stop there and hand it off to the team.
Thanks, Chief Ito, and thank you to the council. We're really excited to be here to talk to you about this very important subject. We have a set of slides that we've prepared, but before we jump into that, I just want to echo Chief Ito's comments and thank all of the community participants for their input. As Chief Ito mentioned, it's really great to hear such, you know, thoughtful feedback, and it is confirming, you know, some of the work that we're doing as being really important, and validating some of the directions we want to go with for our work in the Department of Supplier and Workforce Diversity, but also in partnership with the Finance Cabinet as we move forward, trying to bring greater equity to city contracting. We've made a lot of progress in the past 2 years. Some of the programs, the Sheltered Market Program, for example, were mentioned in some of the testimony from the community, but we have more stuff in the works, and so excited to share a little bit about, you know, our plans for the next year, both the Supplier Diversity Program, but also, you know, in collaboration with finance and other cabinets of the city. So before we get into the slides, I'll just throw it to my colleague Mike Miller if he has any other comments. Otherwise, we can just jump right in.
Thank you, Andre. Overall, I agree with everything that they said. I now have about 14 or 15 stickies of follow-ups already sitting on my desk. But this is something we really do care about. And there's been a tremendous amount of work that we've been putting into trying to find a way to make sure that we're making smart interventions that are going to have a real impact. And so I think, but yeah, I think we hop into the slides and get rolling. Unless, Jen, you've got something else.
We're all really excited about this energy. I just want to acknowledge the energy that is in this Zoom right now and the direction that we're all moving in. So I just want to say that I echo it, and I am here for it. So if somebody can help Jen make sure that she can go through those slides, that would be great.
And as we wait, Councillor, if I can say, Roberto, if you can email me, it's just first.lastname@boston.gov on that acquisition piece, because I know this hearing is about procurement and making sure we're getting contracts where they got to go, but absolutely acquisition and ownership by businesses of color throughout the city is vitally important for the future sustainability of the city. So I would love to talk to you about that. And that's the last time you hear from me.
Oh, no. Chief, I just wanted to let you know that Roberto, in that acquisition conversation, had talked about this, that if he's able to have this space, there's also opportunity for contracting based on provision, so that there is a connection to that. So I will make sure that you guys get connected so that you all can help support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think I'm probably first. So we were going to start this open with a little bit of an overview of some of the process, because I think one of the things that we were just hearing is a lot of confusion over who do I go to, what's going on, how do I find stuff, and it's thoroughly understandable. So let's take a quick little look through the beginning here. But one of the first things to just sort of get a sense of is this is the scale of what we're doing. And so fundamentally, departments rely heavily on procurement in order to execute their policy goals. I think this has been pretty clear in terms of the different types of things that we're buying. But what you're seeing here is a little bit of a breakdown of for 1 year, this is just a quick snapshot from fiscal year 21 of the kinds of procurements we're doing. And so there are about 1,200 competitive procurements a year that go out. About half of those are what are called written quote contracts, and this is between $10,000 and $50,000 with a relatively simple process where you just go out and get 3 quotes from folks and assign to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. The next one is sort of IFBs, invitation for bid, again, low bid, but it can be for any value. RFPs, request for proposals. And so there are a number of different, and proposals, it's where you're judging the best value. And so this is one of the ones that we're working on, and we'll come back to this a little bit later on. But one of the big things to also remember is we have, no, go ahead, there are a number of different people that are working on this. And I think, as has been referenced at a couple different points throughout today, we've got several different departments. So breaking it down, we have under economic opportunity inclusion, we have the supplier diversity team, and their focus again is really looking at the business certifications, the equity interventions that we've been developing, and doing that direct assistance and outreach to those businesses, as well as really doing an incredible job of working with the individual departments to help them plan ahead. One of the things that is really core to this, and I want to just tag this while we're here, is that departments generally want to actually procure more equitably. They want to improve their supplier diversity. And so a lot of what we've been doing is trying to find ways to make it easier for them. And so that sort of turns the next piece over to my little shop here. This is under strategic procurement. We are based right out of the finance cabinet. We're actually sitting here outside the CFO's office if there's some background noise. But a lot of what we've been focusing on is really how do we make those solicitations? How do we make the proposals that people are responding to? How do we make those easier to read? How do we simplify that? How do we help departments do a better job? Looking at individual interventions in very large contracts or things that are complicated or difficult, and really starting to focus a lot more on the internal process reform. And so this is the stuff that, as we're looking at it and discussing it today, this is about all of the hoops that people are feeling like they're going to jump through. And so looking at, what are the different steps you're going to take along the way? What forms, what's the process? Where do you see it? How do you respond? This is all stuff that we are spending an extraordinary amount of time looking at, researching, and trying to find ways to improve, being as careful as possible. So then, in addition to this, we've got 2 other shops that have also sort of been mentioned today. And so this would be the procurement department up on the 8th floor. And this is a central purchasing operation that really focuses on procuring goods. This is the department that Chris Radcliffe runs, and they are doing an incredible job processing an enormous volume of goods procurements on a regular basis. They're also responsible for publishing the city record, as well as providing basic help desk to vendors when they're trying to respond to a bid. It's a big team, but there's a ton going on up there. As well, as has been coming up a lot, is the auditing department. And so this is where accounts payable, and they are the last step along the process as you're actually going out and getting paid. They're responsible for a lot of the compliance work and approving those contracts and reviewing them, as well as the AP function. So this is sort of a basic, quick overview so you can start to get a sense of the different players that are involved as we're trying to make some change here. So let's hop on to the next one. Great. And so looking at an overall process, just as a quick review, this may be something, but it's sort of a couple of the different steps along the way as we go through this. One of the biggest ones is really looking at that buying plan. And so from the beginning, it's how do we let people know about things? This is as the departments are getting their budgets, as they're moving forward, trying to figure out what are we going to do? How are we going to start to execute these policies over the next year? They're then going out and evaluating businesses to see who could potentially do this. Is this a thing that really exists? Because one thing that we'll come back to, we have to work, it's not just about informing folks. You really have to craft these solicitations in a way that makes sense. And that's one of the hardest pieces of this work. Then we're planning and releasing those bids. This is the one where you start to look at what are the interventions that are available again. The sheltered market, the equitable procurement outreach, the new special written quote contract home rule that with your help we all passed, and then individual contract specific goals. Then it's awarded in contract, great, not signing the actual contract, then the services get delivered. Then here's where one of the things that I had actually spoken with Maureen Joyce, the city auditor, before this. She's sorry she couldn't make it. She literally has jury duty. But one of the things is that the vendor's going to submit their invoice. Then the department confirms receipt, and then it goes through and gets paid. One of the important things to try and wrap our heads around as we're doing this is, from a system perspective, when people are following the process internally, things actually move pretty quickly. The issue that we sometimes bump into is when somebody either isn't trained, doesn't know, or gets confused by a complex thing. And so at the end of the day, we're ultimately responsible for finding, no matter where it breaks down, we've got to understand that and figure out how we can adjust for it. But this is sort of the overarching piece. One of the important things also on this page, and we'll come back at it in a second, is that the award can be here, but then it can be sometimes months or years until that work is performed and then the actual contract is paid. And so one of the questions becomes, where along the way do we start to see the impact on spending of the contracts that we're putting out the door? And so that's something we'll see in just a second as we look at the spending analysis. So this is a graph that has started to pop up more and more. And this is really just a breakdown of the spending, discretionary spending by the city, quarter over quarter, year over year. It's a lot, but as I mentioned, one of the things that we really focus on reporting is the spend itself, because that's the point where we've said this work has happened, this is the thing that's going on, these are dollars out the door, and that's actually what really can make an enormous difference for somebody. And so as we've been looking at this, we're still sort of hovering around that 6.4, 6.5%, and that's about where it is. And this is we've been starting to make some of the steps, but a lot of the interventions that we've made have been very limited pilots. We're still figuring it out, making sure these individual things work. And so we're starting to see some of those come through, but it's not on the scale that we'd like, definitely not. Because go ahead.
I'm sorry, just because, I just want to make sure that those who are tuning in are tracking, right? So if you could just slow down just quickly.
Of course.
The city, the spending, can you just give us a quick understanding of kind of what this graph means and kind of just in the most
Absolutely.
Terms, what is the state of our financial affairs when it comes to contracting and spending money with small minority businesses? Can you just
totally. And Jen, Andre, you can hop in anytime. What we're looking at here across this graph is based on the fiscal year, the quarter of this, so every 3-month block. But importantly, it's the top level number this is the total discretionary spend by the city. And the orange along the bottom is the amount spent with diverse businesses, with identified and certified businesses.
So for example, 242.9 million, and of that only 15.2 million were spent on minority businesses?
Yeah.
Is what that is?
That's what that says right now.
And it sounds like there has been, from quarter one, there was 149.5, and then it was 9. It seemed like, so there's growth here. Is that,
yes.
Looking at this, right, for those folks who are tuning in, for those who have a growth mindset, seems like from quarter one to quarter two, we've made some progress. Is that the most like simplest understanding of this graphic?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Anybody comments? I think no, you got it. You got it in one. And so this is an important piece of looking at it of how do we make sure that we're tracking this and holding ourselves accountable for it, but also trying to figure out, but also remembering that sometimes it takes a little bit for things to show up in this. And so the next one that we'll come to is actually coming back to one question that keeps getting asked, which is actually about the dollar value of the awarded contract. So this is something that's to break down a little bit of what we're looking at here between fiscal year 20, this is calendar year, I think. Okay, calendar year 2022 and calendar year 2023. Looking at the dollar value of awarded contracts to certified businesses. Now, this is with the ethnicity breakdown. And so just so that people have a sense of what they're looking at, the top lines are the ones that, these are the ones for which we have the ethnicity information. The bottom is one where we don't know, but is part of but is a certified business, which usually means it is a state certification. But they have not actually then shared that ethnicity data with us. We're working to do a better job of capturing that, but that's why you're seeing sort of the bulk of it falling into that category.
Right, so that I'm clear again, only just because I do have a lot of people who are tuning in that this is the first time they're seeing something like this. I just want us to, in terms of this, so the number of businesses is the last one. So it was 12 Asian businesses, 20 Black businesses, and 2 Latino businesses that got contracts. Is that what that is right there?
Yes.
Well, so Councilor, this is saying that total is how much all minority businesses received, and then for what you just read off 1222, that's just for who we know. And then there's a larger, so that 31 could contain more Latino businesses or Black businesses or Asian businesses. We just don't know because that information lives with the state and they've not yet shared that data with us.
All right, so then I'm curious as when you, okay, so I'll wait for my questions, but I just want to make sure that people know kind of like, this is the amount of money that they received, this is how many people applied, this is the amount that was rewarded, and this is the number of businesses, correct? That's what that graph is about. Okay, great, thank you.
Absolutely, and please interrupt anytime. The more this is a conversation, the better. As anyone around can attest, if anybody has 14 or 15 hours that they'd like to spend talking about this, I am happy to go into whatever level of detail. And I think everybody else in this office is sick of hearing me talk about it. So in any case, this is really important. So one of the big things that you'll see on here is that spike of in terms of award to Black-owned businesses in fiscal year 23 or calendar year 23, and that's City Fresh. So this is fiscal year 23. That's City Fresh, and the reason why there's an asterisk is that's the effective value of that contract is $17 million, and so. It's a big jump and it's an incredible value. But one of the things that we're really trying to do is also make sure that we can make the process easier to make more, to not just bigger contracts, but also more of them and get a broader and more diverse group. Let's hop to the next one. I think we're getting, yeah, there we go. So that's sort of the basic framework. And I think I'm going to hand it over to Andre to start walking through some of the tools that we've been using to try and move those numbers.
Yeah, so I'm just going to briefly touch on a few different interventions that we've used over the past few years and continue to use or are expanding, specifically to increase the city spending with MBEs and WBEs. They fall under a lot of different categories: business certification, events and technical assistance, direct financial support, tools, policy, and process improvements. And I might throw to Mike or Jen on a few of these. But just to get us started off, one of the core programmatic elements of our office is doing events and technical assistance. We have a business manager and an outreach and engagement manager that do direct work with businesses. That oftentimes constitutes getting vendor accounts set up in the supplier portal, doing matchmaking for like relevant city contracting opportunities that might be of interest to particular businesses, and helping guide businesses through some of our newer programming and grant programs that are specifically built to support MBEs and WBEs. We also do a fair amount of in-community events. We have our own Pathways to City Contracting opportunity fairs, which bring city buyers and businesses together to talk about upcoming contracting opportunities at the city, and our weekly certification office hours where we help businesses fill out their certification applications for certification with the city. But we also attend events that are held by community partners and nonprofit organizations where we deliver trainings for how to get certified, informational sessions about what our office does, and some of the specific programming for MBEs and WBEs. I think in the past year, in 2022, I think we've done nearly 20 different events where we've shared trainings for certification or just general information about our events. So we like to take a lot of that information to the community so folks who are attending our partners events can learn a little bit more about our work. We also have a pretty substantial direct financial support grant program, which is called the Contracting Opportunity Fund. We've made nearly $2 million in grant funds to certified businesses, the majority of whom are minority-owned businesses over the past 2 years that we've run the grant. You can see this little table here just includes the total dollar awards awarded through the grants and the breakdown based on the MBE or WBE status of the grantees. And in this case, we're also showing that the majority of our grantees for the past 2 years have been Black-owned businesses. We are planning on launching a third round of the Contracting Opportunity Fund this year, which again is meant to support businesses that are certified, MBEs and WBEs, small businesses, and really close that disparity that we have been referencing for the entirety of this hearing. We also have put a lot of work into spinning up some tools, and I think that this actually speaks to this particular one, the buying plan, speaks to some of the comments that the community members who joined us have made, business owners specifically, about sort of having better visibility into what the city is planning on buying. So the buying plan is something that we have been working on and have published for 2 years now, and we're going into our third round this year. And it's essentially a forecast of what the city is planning on buying in a coming fiscal year, broken down by department, by type of spending, type of procurement. And this is really meant to give business owners a preview, sort of like, honestly, to give them lead time so that they can prepare themselves to bid on relevant contracts. And as we go into this third round, we're continuing to refine the way we display this information to include more information that helps businesses get in contact with the departments that are doing the procurements. And so this is a really great tool for businesses who are interested in city contracting, but are not sure what the city is planning on buying and how they quite fit in. This publicly viewable dashboard will give you, by each department, a description and breakdown of what that department is planning on procuring in the coming fiscal year. And so we always like to shout this out because it's a great tool for small businesses. On the policy side, I think many of the councilors know this, of course, but we launched a sheltered market program at the end of last year after having completed a pilot in 2022, in the first half of 2022. The sheltered market program is a special section of 30B that allows us to designate certain procurements as being available for bidding or for proposals only from MBEs and WBEs. And so using this program, we've awarded 5 contracts, 2 of which were part of our pilot, and then the 3 following contracts for snow removal were awarded at the end of last year. And we are in a process right now of working with departments to put together their equitable spending plans for the year so that we can identify more contracts that we can send through the sheltered market program as we try and scale up the volume of contracts that we're designating as available only to MBEs and WBEs. We also, and again, this will come as this is not news to the council, but we recently passed a home rule petition which allows city buyers to use the simplified written quote contract process as opposed to an RFP or an IFB for purchases of up to $250,000 if they're soliciting quotes from MBEs and WBEs. So this is a really powerful tool that allows it feeds 2 birds with 1 stone. It allows city buyers to use a simplified process and promotes the use of MBEs and WBEs as city contractors. And so this is a really great tool, and we're in the process right now of implementing this and scaling it up over the next few months. So we're really excited to see some of the results from launching this new program. I'm actually going to throw to Mike for this one because he and Jen have been doing a lot of work on revamping the way that we actually advertise and also put together our RFPs. So I'll throw to Mike on this.
Absolutely. And thank you, Andre. A couple of the folks from the community mentioned the absolute, nightmare of legalese that often comes down as one of the standard RFPs. I do this for a living, and sometimes it takes me 15 or 20 pages to figure out what it is that they're buying. And so a lot of the way that we've been rethinking this is trying to make it as simple as possible for a business to, at a glance, know if this is something that they might actually be able to bid on. And this is the actual, so there are a couple things that are going on, but overall we're creating a new standard and a new template for requests for proposals. Specifically, we break it up into a couple different thoughts. Really, what is it that we as the city are trying to accomplish with this proposal, with this contract? What is it we are specifically asking the vendor to do? And how are we gonna know if it's working? And so getting departments to get out of the legalese and stop worrying about that and really focus in on what those goals are and what it is that they're trying to do helps them simplify the writing. And so pushing them to, as quickly as possible, just on this front page, 1 to 3 sentences of like, what is it that you're trying to do? Right up front, right there, so that one first page allows you to have a quick sense of what is it that's going on. We sometimes look at it as like the baseball card of this, of like, when are the dates? What's going on? Roughly how big is it? What are we actually doing here? And so it doesn't necessarily immediately address some of the translation issues, but as was mentioned, even if we can get this into language that just makes sense, people just talking about the thing that they're trying to buy, then that's something that can be translated on the fly, and at least enough to be able to give somebody an idea if this is something they should be able to work on. So there's this, and then as well, supporting the departments as they try to write it, because this is tough. Departments are out there trying to do their job and trying to do their service delivery, and not thinking about procurement, which is what ends up leading to a lot of the really confusing writing, because they're trying to speak a language and trying to build out a program using procurement, which isn't the thing they do all the time. And so as part of that central team, we're starting to look at like, what can we do to actually then support them as they're doing it? So standardizing the intake processes, which to help them then write it, giving them the tools and starting to train them on the way through, with the goal of making it so that the vendors can actually understand what it is that is being asked of them so that they can then bid on it or not. And this is one of the bigger things that's coming out, and it's flying off the shelves every time somebody in a department sees it. They start grabbing it and making their own copies. So overall, we should start seeing more and more of these emerge as we go. Okay.
Yeah, I'm being, I just want you to know I've reset the timer a few times just because, you guys are super uber excited about this conversation. But I also just want to be mindful that we're slated to wrap at 6. And I just want to make sure that we leave some time for our colleagues to ask questions. And I just want to, Michael, I love and appreciate your enthusiasm alongside with your colleagues. But I really want us to, if you have 1 or 2 slides, if we can just get to the end so that we can make sure we open up and have enough time to spend some time with some questions, that would be great. Sorry, Michael.
There are only 2 more slides left, so I'm going to go through these very quickly.
How did I know that?
So finally, our office certifies businesses as MBEs, WBEs, and small, so SBE and small local businesses. We also recognize veteran-owned businesses. And so what you're seeing here is just sort of the increase year over year of our certification pool. So certified businesses at the City of Boston. You can see that we've been, as a result of a lot of the new programming, as a result of introducing the Contracting Opportunity Fund, we've been adding a substantial number of new certified businesses every year. And that's it. I thought there was another one after that, but that's it. So I'll stop sharing now.
Okay. Chief Idu, just wanted to just make sure before we opened up for questions, wanted to see if you or Jen, I know you didn't get to say much, and I'm all about girl power, and it's Women International Month, and I want to make sure that your voice is heard too before we move on to questions. So Jen, I'm not sure if you were, thinking of speaking.
No, I appreciate you making space for me here. I'm very actively engaged with my colleagues on this call, so don't worry, I am participating. But the one thing I do want to call out is related to the supplier portal. I absolutely love that we're talking about that. That is something that we all agree is really painful and discouraging, and something that we are looking at directly as part of like our financial system upgrade and everything, but we've really pivoted to looking at that and pull together a broad coalition of people to really get to the bottom of what do we need this to do to make it a better experience for our business community. And some of our guiding principles around it being accessible, predictable, empowering. We want businesses to feel confident working with us, not discouraged. So definitely more to come on that, but I wanted to mention that piece.
And if I can just add in 30 seconds or less, on the communication piece, I just want to use this opportunity as a pitch that we have a $250,000 RFP out right now to hire a firm to help us develop templates that we can share in multiple languages that we can share via social media and other mediums to be able to advertise beyond the city record, but actually utilize other tools of letting folks know when contracts are out, when they're due, and how much they're worth, because that is also going to dictate, whether or not someone bids. And then the other piece is in terms of payment, upfront payments. We've been fortunate to be able to work on a pilot with a local CDFI to think about a program of providing contract financing so that when a vendor is awarded a contract, the CDFI can provide some upfront capital to cover the initial costs as the city is working on its structured payment model. So just wanted to share those, but we're looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Chief, and your entire team. I am so super encouraged and looking forward to, I'm going to ask, we're going to dive into questions, and I wanted to lead with my co-sponsor, then followed by President Flynn, and I know that Councilor Breeden has joined us again, then going to Councilor Lara, and then Councilor Burrell. So I'm going to start the questions with my co-sponsor, Councilor Anderson, then followed by President Flynn. So Councilor Anderson, if you are available and here with us, you now have the floor. So I'm going to assume that Councilor Anderson will be joining us shortly. Sometimes we do go on mute and pick up a call. So I'm going to go to President Flynn. You now have the floor, and thank you for your patience. Councilor Anderson is having tech issues. Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question and comment, so I want to make sure that the staff that you supervise, Chief, and that's under your supervision, are fully aware of what they need to do and what they can't do. I want to make sure that they're following the guidelines in the rules and the laws exactly. I don't want to see any city employee do something inappropriately, and I say that because these issues are critical. This program is critical. I have many woman-owned companies in my district, and minority-owned companies in my district, especially as well, including in Chinatown and the South End and in South Boston. But here's my question, Chief. Are we providing training for City of Boston employees to make sure that they know exactly what they should be doing, what they shouldn't do? There's a lot of legal related issues. I want to make sure everybody knows what the rules are and that everyone is exactly following them.
Well, thank you for the question, Councilor, Mr. President, I should say. So I know that the members of the supplier diversity team are well aware of the rules and regulations associated with procurement law. And I'm sure if Chief Grafenberger were here, would express that her team, particularly the two that are represented here today, are fully aware of procurement law and what we can and cannot do.
Okay.
So before you move on, Chief Irigu, because I think President Flynn has a really good question in terms of just even those who are tuning in. If anyone here could just kind of, President Flynn, if there are any specific laws or anything that you want to share or you want to highlight or want to seize this moment to help educate those who are tuning in so that they have a better understanding of what those laws are, or if there's any particular law or Chief Irigu or anything that you want to highlight, just because I think, we want to make sure that we're setting up our constituents up for success as they navigate trying to secure a contract in the city of Boston. Like I always say, it's like trying to crack the Da Vinci Code. You go to this person, then you tell them to go to that person. And sometimes you don't even know who you're going to talk to about what. So if you could just in the most basic, really looking at ethics and, if you could just share with us some high level laws that everybody should be super mindful of as we continue to have these conversations so we can seize this moment also as a teachable one. President Flynn or anyone else?
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. I think you're exactly right. The program is so important and so critical, but we want to make sure, in the interest of making sure the program continues to be effective, and we're starting out on a program that needs our support, but we want to make sure that it is run appropriately, and that's my top goal, is to make sure that this effective program is run appropriately, and that's my number one priority. Let me go to my final point, and I know, and I have every confidence in Chief as well for the work you're doing, Chief. Do you want to hear one bit of criticism?
We welcome it. It's feedback for us. It's not criticism.
And Chief, you and I have talked about this about this issue many times. And excellent presentation for everybody. But I heard one sentence about veteran-owned companies. Not because I'm a disabled veteran, but I think it's also an important part of the strategy. But I heard one sentence about veteran-owned companies. Tell me why that's not important.
Well, Councillor, I would not say that it's not important to us. It's actually very important to us that all disadvantaged businesses are getting information, are aware of what's available, getting every bit of support that we provide to everyone else. Certainly, we've been in touch with Commissioner Santiago in order to build some programming around providing resources to veteran-owned businesses. As a matter of fact, just a few short weeks ago, our small business team had a series of programs for veteran-owned businesses, not just to provide resources, but to also increase our numbers so that we are more in tune with the veteran community. And we just had a meeting with Brighton Marine the other day in order to talk about how we set up some programming where they're located so that we're going directly to veteran-owned businesses as opposed to just the virtual world and expecting people to come to us. So we certainly, and actually I was going to say at the top in my comments and neglected to, because I knew you were going to ask a question about veteran-owned businesses. And so neglected to share all that previously, but certainly veteran-owned businesses are a top priority, like the other categories that were talked about today.
Thank you, Chief. I know it is, and I know you are committed to doing that. Chief, maybe sometime this summer we can hold a town hall or a Zoom meeting with some veterans and maybe just explain the veterans aspect of it as well. Is that okay?
Absolutely. And I would love to set up a series of engagement, and you'll have to promise to barbecue at one of these engagements. All right.
We'll do. I make the best hot dogs and hamburgers. So, just want to say thank you, Chief, to your team, your staff, and thank you to my City Council colleagues for their leadership on this as well. Thank you, Councilman Mejia.
Thank you, Mr. President. And when President Flynn asks those hard-hitting questions, you better have really good answers for them, because he will let you know about yourself and you'll be denied hot dogs and hamburgers. Okay. So I believe that our colleague, Councillor Anderson, and my co-sponsor had to log out and log back in. And Councillor Anderson, are you back?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologies, I don't think you guys could hear me the first time. Thank you, Chief Iruwu and Andre for, sorry, Jen, Michael, everyone for the presentation. I really appreciate the process improvement in terms of standardizing or simplifying the process, as you said, for RFP applicants. I wonder if you've considered to a consultant, or are you currently working with a consultant, third-party consultant, to help you with this? Is that a yes, Jen? You have nodding.
Yes, yes, that is me vigorously nodding. But Mike, do you want to go?
Sure. We have, as Councillor Braden actually called out, we had actually worked with Gartner Research to actually come out and start looking at some of the better options in terms of structurally, but also how to figure out how we can do this. So we've got some outside support, but one of the other things is that out of we've actually been making an investment in new positions for what are called procurement analysts, with the idea being focusing on who are those folks that can actually go out there and support this. Because as much as we've got, as you're saying, sort of, we can look at the consultants and we can do a number of things, but we really do have to then work with the departments and get some real-time feedback of like, did this work for you here, given the constraints and everything else? So we're hitting it from all possible directions.
Thank you, Michael. Does that include only analyzing how you're making progress, or does it also include recommendations for metrics? So if I say to you, hey, this is how you're doing, that's just monitoring a thing, or this is the tool that you could use to actually make progress and monitor and measure, then that would be your metric. Or this is the goal, or whatever recommendations after an evaluation?
Got it. The answer is both. In terms of designing new ways that we can actually see if this is working, how are the ways that will be good indicators, but then also really building those levers of what can we do to make this better on the fly. And so the other thing is, in addition to having the outside consultants, I happen to have one of the best process engineers that the city has ever had in the form of Jen, who is really driving an enormous amount of how to make this really work within the different departments. And so together we've been able to, I think, get some real good stuff done.
I also want to add that we had a process strategist with us for the last 9 months who was looking at she started off initially just looking at the advertising process and then expanded to our entire procurement process. And then most recently just wrapped up some work on the supplier portal process. So part of that conversation is also looking at like, not just what are we doing, what could we be doing? And then also like, how do we measure if the things that we think we should be doing or could be doing will actually have the impact we think they will have.
Thank you, Michael and Jen. Apologies if I missed this part of it. Have you guys shown comparisons by year? Do we have data analysis on that level? Do we know how much we've grown from year to year in terms of increasing diversity?
Yes, we did go through the quarter-over-quarter spend, and I'd be happy to spend some time walking you through a little bit of it offline. But the short answer is we are getting some slight uptick, but it's progress. But of course, there's always room, and we want to do more. So it's a question of starting to take the interventions that we've had so far that are having an impact and starting to scale those.
Sorry, I saw the actual numbers. I didn't see comparisons. I didn't actually see like that we've increased by this much.
I don't think we've got the quarter over quarter, but you're going to get.
Oh yeah, so I think Councilor, it sounds like you're looking for like for the columns that it shows not just the dollar value and the number of contracts, but like the variance, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Happy to share that information. We'll do that for you.
Yeah. And I just want to note for the record that we would love to get that. IGR people back to all of the council colleagues. Those are really good questions that Councilor Anderson is asking for, and would love to make sure that all my colleagues have access to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Other than recreating or improving this, like, or standardizing or simplifying the process, which I really, really appreciate, because you know how I come into these meetings and I go, well, that red tape, that bureaucratic process is just stupid. But I really appreciate that, because I'm like, oh, this is smart. I like this. So I guess my question, though, other than standardizing process, two things. So one, sorry if I missed this again. Do we have efforts to increasing BIPOC potential candidates or contractors? And don't know if we still use that term, BIPOC. My apologies, but I know some people don't appreciate that. But the other thing is also, do we have a database of sort of keeping track of inventory of current available contractors that are applying and are not getting the contracts?
So I can take the first part of this. So specifically for programs or interventions to increase the participation of businesses owned by people of color, we touched on a few of the programs we've launched this past year, one of which is the Sheltered Market Program, which again is a part of Chapter 30B that allows us to designate certain contracts as being only available to MBE and or WBE bidders. And we've designated 5 of those and awarded 5 of those to diverse businesses over the past year since we launched the pilot program. We also recently passed a home rule petition that allows us, or allows city buyers, to do a written quote contract for purchases up to $250,000, which is going up from the normal 50, if they're soliciting quotes only from MBEs and WBEs. So we've set up a lot of programming that both on the one hand actually sets aside contracts for MBE and WBE bidders. It's still a competitive process, but only MBEs and WBEs can compete. And then also we've sort of incentivized using MBEs and WBEs through this written quote contract, and all certified businesses, which includes veteran-owned businesses and small local businesses, through this new written quote contract threshold increase. So yes, we've spent quite a bit of time and effort this past year building an infrastructure that really promotes the participation of MBEs and WBEs in city contracting. The second question, I'm totally blanking on. Would you mind repeating it, Councillor?
If we keep track of if we have a database of who bids and then doesn't get awarded. And I would say to this question, Councillor, because this has come up, I know Councillor Mejia raised this, and 1 or 2 of the panelists, the community panelists, raised this question. As we are, again, as Jen mentioned, like, we all agree that the current iteration of the supplier portal is pretty basic, and we need to make huge updates to that. And so that is a recommendation that we're going to be including in our push for a new version of the portal to help us track that. I think it was mentioned earlier that, like, there are X number of departments that do their own thing. And so as much as we are, this team that's on the call today, trying to grapple and take all that in and know what everyone is doing, right now, it's not possible to know for every contract, but certainly for what we're putting out, we can certainly track that and build this into version 2 of the supplier portal.
Thank you, both Andre and Shegun. I wonder, though, Madam Chair,
Yeah, no, I just wanted to let you know that I've set the timer twice, and I just want to be mindful. I know you're the sponsor, and I'm giving you a little extra leeway, but I want to be mindful that we have a few more colleagues that are also lined up for some questions. And if you don't mind, we could do a second round, or if, just wanted to be mindful of the time.
I just wanted to clarify the last statement.
Okay.
Please. Thank you, Councilor Braden and Councilor Well, for your grace. I wonder if in the database, then we're actually identifying, for example, like if in District 7, I would identify all artists, but then I would say, you're in phase 1, you're an artist who can ready to go, you can apply for a contract, you are a vendor, you are professional, you know how to be an entrepreneur, you know how to open a business or something like that. And then there's people in second phase, and you know what that looks like. And the third phase is like beginners level, right? If there was a community outreach effort that could come out. I don't know if it lives in ONS or where does it live, but that actually was going to create this inventory of what exists in Boston for all of Black and Brown, women, minority, business owners or contractors, potential people. But then there were different phases, and that way we could identify which phase needed tech support, which phase was beginners and needed less, classes or certifications or whatever. And so maybe that's something that the council can take on. But I would love to work with you guys. I have to just say in closing, this is the one, not the only one, before I get in trouble, but one of the departments that I certainly feel works really hard and arduously in making progress. So I appreciate you all for thinking equitably and continuing to pursue progress in this. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. But would love to talk to you about that if that doesn't exist. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify on our end, you're speaking to understanding the capacity of different businesses out there. Is that the
precisely
recommendation? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, I just want to underscore that we, well, at least me, I host hearings because I think it's an opportunity for us to listen and learn from each other. And then for us as, well, at least for me in my office, is to really take what we hear in this space and identify ways that we can help support the various departments. And that means that, it's not just being a loudmouth for the sake of being a loudmouth, right? But it's really listening and figuring out what are the things that we need to be advocating for so that the city's set up for success. Because if you guys are successful, so are the constituents that we all serve, right? So I think that it has to be a triple bottom line here. Everybody needs to win. And I really do appreciate Councilor Anderson's line of questioning, but also just the recommendations that she's making in this space, because I really do believe there are a lot of really rich ideas here to lean into. I'm going to move now to Councilor Breeden, followed by Councilor Latta, if she's still with us, then followed by Councilor Worrell, and then I have a few questions myself. So Councilor Breeden, you now have the floor, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Councillor Mejia, Madam Chair. I'm just looking at the city record, paper copy, volume 115, issue number 13 of the city record, just came out today as the official chronicle of municipal affairs in the city of Boston. This is where all the ads are for the procurement requests, all the requests for proposals, jobs for all. I'm just wondering, this you can sign up to get a paper copy. Is this delivered in an electronic copy to potential vendors? And how many recipients, what sort of subscription list do we have at the moment for recipients receiving the weekly print version of because it's got an address label space for it. It's designed to be sent out by mail. So how many recipients get it through the Postal Service for $75 a year? And then how often will copies be sent out for $2 an issue a year, $2 per issue every week? And then just understanding how many people to actually take out an ad to advertise their business in this periodical that comes out every week. It's just curious, is this the only vehicle that we have to educate people about potential contracts? And then, just even having an understanding of, we're trying to increase the number of minority-owned and women-owned businesses who get contracts from the city. I'm just curious, just thinking about the report from 2021, procurement reform analysis for the city of Boston. It says in this that there were more than 600 city staff involved in procurement and contract management across 50 plus city departments. And the city uses an Oracle PeopleSoft BAIS as the primary financial management system. And it seems to be sort of antiquated and not the tool for you. It's used for issuing and awarding procurement contracts, And you know, how old is that system? And how difficult would it be to bring it up to be a new modern portal system? And how difficult would it be? Or would there be just too many fixes and too many contingencies that would have to be met in a new system that makes it sort of difficult to transition to a new system? And just really just trying to get my head around, because I think we've heard a lot from folks who are trying to just navigate the system, the application process, but I'm even wondering, how do people even know what potential contracts are available for them to apply for? That's a good start for now.
Well, Councillor, I want to thank you for all of those questions, and I'll just touch a little bit on the communication piece, and then we'll kick to the strategic procurement team on the process and the system, and Andre, if he wants to chime in on any of these. But this is the reason I talked about the contract earlier, $250,000 for a firm to help us develop templates for how we can simplify the language and advertise via social channels, newsletters, but also information that we can share with partners that were on here earlier, like BECMA, Amplify, others who actually have been pushing these out via their newsletters and social media to help make sure that the broader community is aware. But these templates are meant to help us across various languages, just be able to input the most important information, which is, you know, what department, when's the due date, how much is this worth, so that then we can generate some inquiries. Because I think, again, all of us would agree, you know, that when these systems were first rolled out in 1986, that it was great for its time, but 40 years later, it's time for us to think of new systems to use that are more amenable and accessible to today's society. So I'll kick to Mike and Jen if they have any answers on the how many folks are subscribed, although I believe this might be another member of their team that has that information. But definitely they can talk to you about the base and Oracle piece, and then we'll invite Andre to answer these questions as well. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Let me, again, thank you, Chief. Let's sort of clarify something. As much as it's sort of a newspaper, this really is just a vehicle primarily for the release, for us to advertise the bids that we're putting out. That's its primary thing. So it's not so much businesses putting advertisements in it as we are notifying people and doing that. So that's one. In terms of the distribution, I would have to go double check that rather than give you a false answer. But what I do want to call out is that the information in it, as bids are released and bid events as they're called through the system, one of the things that we do is we can input individual vendors, either folks who are signed up or just email addresses of people who have expressed an interest or that we've become aware of through our search and outreach to get notified. And so one of the things that a lot of vendors do is they actually sign up when they're creating their account, and they sign up to get invitations for everything. And so every single time the city posts something, these emails start to go out. And that is probably one of the primary channels that we start putting things out. But we have it there. We have it on a pretty readable bids and RFP page that has another chunk of it. The city record is then also published online as a downloadable PDF and some other areas. So we're doing a lot to make it out there. But I agree, it's in terms of advertising, as well as, I would say, they're also for certain types of things, whether it's larger goods and services contracts or construction contracts. They also have state publications that they have to go into. Yeah. That said, these are also things that people who are typically already vendors know to look for. And so one of the things that, as the chief mentioned, is we really are always looking for new ways that we can get more people to pay attention to this and see what's going on. The buying plan is one ahead of time, but then as things start to go out. But Jen, do you want to do base a little bit?
Sure, I can give you a little bit of information to answer some of your questions regarding the history of BASE. My understanding is that we have had this Oracle platform since 1999, and we have since upgraded twice to a more current version. The last was last year. It was a stabilization effort, essentially. There's more technical things that happened that were outside, that beyond my expertise, but it was basically to get us to a state where we were supported by Oracle. That does not mean that we have a user-friendly system. It just means that we are less at risk. Part of the work of that upgrade was to then transition into I'm trying to think of the word, reimagining basically is what it was. Part 2 was figuring out, okay, now we have this stabilized system. What do we need it to do? What are some things that we can do with the team on site, like our developers and our business analysts and the various business owners? And then what can we not do, and what we might have to procure something new at some point to meet our needs. So some of the work that we've been doing right now is establishing what our needs are to serve the functions that we support, and then kind of making some decisions around the technology.
The other thing, when you get 1 week, and then you can look back 1 week, but you can't review the whole year's previous iterations of over a whole year. So, in terms of orienting yourself as a business coming in to get into this space, I think it's helpful to be able to review what sort of procurement requests were happening in the past to get where you might fit into this ecosystem and figure out, there's a niche that my business would work in. And so I think, being able to have an archive of the year's city record, be able to get into it and be able to search it just to figure out, who else is in this space and what sort of procurement requests does the city have that I might be able to apply for? It would be very helpful.
I do just want to mention one thing here, Councillor Braden, before we move on, which is that despite the fact that the supplier portal itself is quite limiting, we have other avenues that we are using every day to get in contact with businesses to inform them about RFPs and IFBs that are available at the city. We, about a year and a half ago, turned our department's newsletter into essentially a vehicle for informing subscribers about available bids and RFPs. Formerly, it was really more of a sort of an events calendar. So we're also, leveraging some of the outreach and engagement staff that we have who are engaging with businesses every day and do a lot of one-off matchmaking and also information and send information to businesses that they know are in our network when they see contracts that have come out in the city record and are available for bidding and proposals. Very recently, one of the contractors in our network that we worked with in the past actually won a contract doing mattress removal for the Public Works Department, and they found out about the bid as a result of our raising awareness amongst the network of businesses that we're in contact with, certified businesses. And so we are, as a department and this team as a whole, trying to fill gaps where sort of the technology isn't really doing us any favors in terms of outreach to businesses. So I did just want to mention that.
Yeah, thank you. Madam Chair, I want just one quick more, and just to put it on the record, just in terms of the procurement reform analysis report that was written, indicated a shift towards a central office for contract services model with sort of a hub and spoke model. Are we moving towards that, or are we acting on those recommendations from that report?
Councillor, we'll look forward to having this conversation during the budget season.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I've hit my time.
You have, Councillor Freedom. And I am being incredibly generous.
I appreciate your generosity.
Thank you. No, you asked some really great questions, and this is why we're here, right? And so thank you for your time and for your important questions. I'm going to move on to, I don't see Councillor Lara with us here anymore, so I'm going to move on with to Councillor Rurel, who also happens to be the chair of small business. So I know this is something that's near and dear to him and who has worked a lot in this space. So Councillor Rurel, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the administration for all your work on this and being great partners and coming up with innovative and creative ways on how to increase equity in city contracting and outreach as well. We see you guys on the ground level, on the ground floor inside of the business districts, a lot more, and I do greatly appreciate that. But to that point, I think having you guys out there on foot, making those connections, but I do think there will be a it would be an asset to have like a dedicated or activated, maybe, maybe it's the, like something like a Main Street for like having our small business partners or just people that are coming from the city hall working so small business, those Main Street areas, I think that would be very, very helpful. Like if there's a place that inside of our community that our small businesses can go to receive all this information, will be very helpful to not only our small business partners, but also our people who are looking for city contracts. The other thing that I think I've said the last year when we had this hearing is when I used to do real estate, everyone knew National Move Out Day, September 1st, right? National Move Out Day here in the city of Boston. But I think if we create some predictability around city contracts on saying like every quarter, every month, or whatever it is, creating more predictability, that I think it becomes, I guess, a little tedious, having to constantly check every week, every month on RFPs, or checking your emails. And we all get spammed in emails, right? We all get hundreds of emails on things that we sign up for. So I guess like creating more predictability around that will be very helpful, at least to me, for the small businesses to say, all right, this is the time that we need to start all checking in on city contracts being released. And then the other thing I want to, I wasn't here for your presentation, so I apologize. I had to step up for another meeting. Is are we able in the presentation to break out by race, gender, and also income, like household income? Because I also want to make sure that when we're, I guess I've heard that I just want to make sure that we're targeting Black and brown business or businesses that can use the booths, right? That can use the booth, that are coming from not a higher level of income, right? Like I want to make sure that we're far reaching when we're using our tax dollars as tools. So those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to again open this up to the team to address some of these questions. I will start off by saying, I guess I'll move backwards. So on the household income, that would be an interesting one to look into on our end. I know what might be a better metric is looking at the revenue of the business. I will say that, a couple of things that we're focused on, yes, are making sure that small businesses, which the revenue piece would help us address, it's important that we get contracts to them. We're also simultaneously interested in, for instance, a City Fresh, right? They got a $17 million contract. That's great. And so he doesn't fit in the category of small business, but we for sure want to help create stronger, healthier minority and women-owned businesses because they hire lots of folks, pay better benefits, et cetera. And then the goal is to grow small businesses to that level as well. So our goal is to just have a more robust number of women and minority businesses that have capacity to take on any contract the city puts out. But happy to talk with you about what metric makes the most sense for whether it's household income or revenue of the business. In terms of, there was another question around the timing. So I know that I think you asked this question the last time we had this conversation, and I know that there's been some noodling on this in the year in between. So I'll let the folks that have been doing the most noodling on it actually answer the question. But for me, I know that as someone who has had to put together RFPs and put them out, sometimes it's difficult to say this is when a thing is going to happen. Usually it comes up based on need and the availability of monies in the budget. I know that this is one thing that the buying plan seeks to address, speaking to your point about predictability, of knowing that, in Q3 of 2024, the cleaning contract for the city council chamber is coming up. And so it's our job to then work with potential vendors that we've identified or who have reached out to see if, to help them be prepared to bid on that. So that those are the types of things that might fit in the category you're talking about. But then there are other contracts that are based on need and, don't always happen on a repetitive basis. And it's difficult to say, on April 1st of this year, this is when this will be available. I will say that one of the other interventions that we did not mention yet is the fact that when a a department is going out to put an RFP out, my office is now included in this, and I have to give major props to Chief Grafenberger, who's our CFO, for being open and amenable to this addition to the process, because a lot of times this adds more time to a process that we're already trying to streamline. But essentially what happens is any contract going out worth more than $250,000, the CFO already signs off on these things and just makes sure that everything is legal, is what Councillor Flynn was talking about. But we then get brought into this process for anything over 250, so that our supplier diversity team is able to make sure this is written properly. This is going to be understandable by any business, and checking to see that diverse businesses in our database could potentially bid on it, and then we make them aware, et cetera. But I know there were other questions that I'm blanking on, so if anyone wants to address them, feel free.
I can jump in, and I'll just preface this. I apologize to the council. I need to depart after I make these comments to take my partner to an appointment. But I will say, Councillor Worrell, you mentioned that it would potentially be productive to have some of the information, technical assistance, general programming that we have for businesses available in the community, located closer to main streets. I will say that one of the things that our office used to do, and we sort of wound down as a result of COVID, was a lot of in-person business visits for the purpose of helping businesses with certification, and office hours held in community centers and libraries. And it's something we've been talking about ramping back up now that folks feel a little bit more comfortable meeting and spending time together in public spaces like libraries and community centers. So I'd love to follow up with you just to talk about how we could leverage those spaces to the greatest effect. But it is something that we've talked about, something that we did in the past, and we intend on revamping as we sort of move out of the worst part of the pandemic. So I just wanted to mention that.
I think one of the other questions was focused around making it predictable or coming up with certain times of year when we would start to release things. And as Chief Idowu said, putting together one of these RFPs, sometimes it's around the needs, sometimes it's around the money, but it is also a substantial amount of work. And as the person who unfortunately gets called at present to help people write these things, it's difficult. And so in terms of one of the questions would be, who are the staff that are writing it? And we have to balance it in terms of predictability versus also saying, if we compress them to this time period, are people going to have to start cutting corners, or not, like, that's a bad way to put it. Are people going to have to start thinking about just how to get this done in terms of compliance, or will they be able to have enough space to think about how do we craft this in a way that is actually likely to get a diverse business or likely to get good service delivery at a quality price? And so I think it's an excellent idea, and there might be some things we could try and work out. I think I'd love to spend some time talking, trying to figure out what makes sense of what is a way that we could do it of making it predictable for people, while still keeping those, while not making it impossible for staff to do their jobs well. I think there's probably some room that we could work together on.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I have one last question, Chair may if possible.
It's Monday. Go ahead, Mr. Rowe.
All right, thank you. And then my last question, it's a short question. So the disparity studies showed the disparities when it comes to MWBE, but then when you look at MWBEs, you take a look at those specific subgroups, there were different demographics that got even less than other demographics, right? So how are we being, if we grow and continue to allocate based on this current breakdown, we're still going to have MWBEs that are at the bottom of this low awarding group already. So how are we being intentional to bring in those other demographics up to, I guess, better levels, right? Bringing them all up to par.
Well, I think your question also just pointed out that we didn't answer one of your questions in the last round, which was, can we break it out by ethnicity in terms of the data that we share? And the answer is yes. And we'll, as Councillor Mejia noted, we'll go through IGR to share this deck as well as answers to or follow-ups to the questions that have been asked. On this piece, though, I will say that the disparity study showed that all minority businesses didn't receive enough in dollars and contracts. And so, for us, I don't think it's about pitting these groups against one another, but rather just making sure that we are awarding more contracts to all diverse businesses. But I will say that if you are to look at the data that we have right now showing the first couple of quarters of 23 and the last full fiscal year of 22, I think we've done an okay job of increasing those amounts. We're at least at whole numbers, I will say, so that's positive. And our goal is to make sure we're doing lots better in every single category. But definitely we'll look forward to working with your office to increase the amounts of contracts being awarded to businesses in places like your district.
Thank you. No, thank you, Chief Idu. And yeah, it wasn't about pitting groups against groups, but making sure that we are being intentional in awarding MWBEs, but also making sure that we're putting support and being intentional in supporting those groups that we see at the bottom of those disparity studies as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilor Morrell. And I just want to thank the administration. And so far, we're almost at time, and I just want to make sure that in the interest of honoring your time and also celebrating my patience here, I want to make sure that you all know you're not leaving here until you answer all my questions now. Okay, y'all ready? No, I'm just joking. So I think, what I don't want to get into the habit of, and I really want us the city as a whole, to really understand is that there are 13 city councilors. We represent the entire city when we make decisions, when we take votes, and when we do all of this. And I totally understand that we all serve different constituency groups. I think it's really important for us to, as we continue to navigate this conversation and any conversation when it comes to resources, that it doesn't feel like the Hunger Games, right? That it doesn't feel like we're all trying to, we all want everyone to be set up for success. And that's why we're having this hearing, is to identify where are the gaps and where are the groups that are falling behind. And then what can we do both as on the council and the administration collectively to close those gaps for those communities, right? So that if we can experience these hearings with that intention, I think that we can get to where we need to be. So one of the things that came up during our community panel was around feedback. And I'm just curious, if there are any businesses, if they're not giving any feedback, what type of, is it an email? Sorry, you were not approved. Here's 5 things that you could do differently. I just want to really just lean in a little bit more on that and how important it is to underscore the performance history of a business. If a business is in good standing, how do we promote them based on their work and merit? If we focus on price, then we may only be contracting with businesses that are not doing a good job. So can we just unpack that a little bit before I dive in deeper into some of my other questions, is just to really respond to some of the things that we heard from our community panel, specifically around the supplier diversity office.
Yeah, and I actually appreciate, again, all the feedback that we heard in the previous panel, because a lot of it are things that when I was at BECMA on the other side pushing for, and especially on this one that you just brought up, Councillor, about sharing denial feedback. I will say that we are continuing to talk to our law department about what is and is not possible in terms of the interpretation of Chapter 30B and whether or not, we're just checking on the legality, but certainly want to make sure that we are providing useful feedback to businesses that are not being awarded contracts beyond a notification saying you didn't win this round, right? Because it's not helpful. And it actually it continues to advance this notion that the city does not want to do business with diverse businesses. And that's why, I can't remember who said it, but it's why you have folks saying, I won't even try. And so definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to really just quickly, just on that point there, is that the fact is that we don't have the type of environment set up where people actually trust government, right? We don't. And we don't want to waste our time, because we have seen time and time again that we have applied multiple times. And I say we because I'm speaking for the folks who have brought this to my attention, is that they go through this whole entire process, right? And they don't succeed. Then we like try again, and then they do. And it just doesn't seem like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And what I hear all the time is that it's all in who you know. And the way that people are ended up getting contracts is also just based on proximity to power. And I want to make sure that we seize this moment to talk about the new era and how we're doing business here in the city of Boston, and how super intentional we are being in making sure that we're creating opportunities for everyone to not only apply, but to be successful. And if they're not, that we know that we're going to do our due diligence to make the process less cumbersome for some. So can we just talk about that?
Sure. Again, at least on the denial feedback, that's something we are talking to law about, because again, I would love to be able to do it. I just want to make sure that it's not setting us up as a city in another way or in a negative way. But this is also something that we've been thinking about, how we talk with our partners in the community about how they might be able to be the vehicle that we share feedback and other resources through, in case we're not able to do that. In terms of the piece around folks feeling that it's based on who you know in terms of the awarding of contracts, I will say, as Mike went through kind of the different forms of contracts, there are some where legally it has to go to whoever provides the lowest amount. However, I think it was Mr. Guzman that brought up, or no, I can't remember who brought this up, but certainly, back when we were talking about this all the time, of a lot of folks of color can't provide lowest because then it will destroy their business, right? They don't have the capacity. This is actually one reason we pushed through the ordinance or the home rule petition piece of lifting up contract amounts to 250, because then we're able to work with that. But it's also why we are in a few weeks going to be launching an initiative to increase the capacity of women and BIPOC-owned businesses, because we also don't want that to be the excuse that we don't get contracts, right? If it is that we don't have the ability to offer the lowest number because it will negatively impact our business, our goal is to then increase the capacity of the business so that whatever the contract, they're able to bid on it.
Yeah. So can you talk to us a little bit about the timeline? I know it's 60 days. Sometimes people are talking about, when they get payment. Can you just, help me understand what is happening between that time from when they sign on to when they're able to receive payment? What is causing the delay?
Well, I'll call in my colleagues from finance on this, but I will just say that as we are working on this issue about payment in advance, we are, at least one of the immediate interventions is working with banking institutions to get some capital up front, because we know that some businesses cannot wait whatever that time period is, or they don't have the money in the bank. But I'll have Mike answer that question directly.
No, that's okay. I'm glad that there's a viable solution there. So, that is more for me what I find to be exciting and interesting. So let me just move on, because I'm happy to hear that. So can you just talk to us, has there ever been an analysis of the percentage of business that are certified in the certified business directory in comparison to those that exist in the city? What outreach efforts have been made to expand that list? The other question that I have is, how do you ensure departments are consulting the certified business directory as a preliminary step to procuring goods and services? So would love to know that. And then can you share some of the barriers to certification and some ways we can remove some of those barriers? Because we hear that a lot from those who are navigating this process. And how can we ensure that certified business directories is easily accessible to not only city departments, but to all city residents in order to expand opportunities for our small businesses? For some reason, it seems like only the city of Boston has access to the certified business directory. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but I'd love to hear what are we doing to make it accessible to all city residents. And then I'm just curious, what kind of culturally sensitive advertising, outreach efforts, and technical assistance supports work have you done thus far? And then how many City of Boston employees were trained to proactive marketing and outreach strategies?
All right, Madam Chair, you're going to have to forgive me if I miss a couple of the questions, but I'm going to answer as many as I was able to write down. And then whatever is not answered, happy to make sure we get to them. And by the way, I am happy to stay here past 6. I don't know about the other two, but I'm happy to be here past 6 because I think these are important questions. All right, so as I was jotting some of these down, you asked about, one of the questions was about how other departments are involved. So if, well, and Mike and Jen could talk about this too, but if Andre were here, he would talk about the work that his team is doing on the equitable procurement plan. So right now, anytime every budget season, every department has to submit their budget to our finance team. In the process of doing that, they also have to go through, here's all the contracts we want to give out, and they have to go to our certified directory and identify whether or not certified vendors could bid on those contracts. And then therefore, it is that information that informs the buying plan, which shows what contracts are out there that diverse businesses could bid on. So every department is engaged. I know that because I am copied on every email that goes out to these departments, and my inbox is flooded every time budget season comes around. So that's what Supply Diversity is doing to engage there. You talked about the Certified Business Directory. It is publicly available on the website. Happy to make sure that it is more prominently featured on EOI web pages so that people can access it, but it is accessible publicly. You mentioned about advertisements. We have not done a good job at this in terms of making sure it's culturally accessible or relevant or in diverse languages. And this is precisely why the contract I mentioned earlier is out there to help us in that effort, and to make sure that for the contracts that we can get out there, that that they're translated and that it's getting to people through other medium besides the city record, as Councilor Braden brought up.
Before you keep going on, and first of all, I just want to acknowledge and just appreciate the fact that you guys are able to stay a little bit longer. And I know, our colleagues went a little bit extra with their questions, and so I'm reserving the right as the chair to do the same thing, just so you know. But I'm just really concerned and really want to be able to figure out how we can support your department chief and everyone else here with some of the non-English speaking businesses, right? There are a lot of folks who come here with a lot of skills and aspirations and know-how, but what they don't have is the language skills. They don't have the understanding that they can be a vendor for the City of Boston cleaning offices. They could be a vendor, for someone recently asked me about how do they become a vendor to help support some of the Meals on Wheels programs, right? Like there's so many opportunities for us to help support culturally appropriate food distribution in certain neighborhoods, right? Like we did it through COVID. There's an opportunity in Age Strong if we understand the dietary needs of our aging loved ones, but if there was a way to lean into that particular program with Meals on Wheels, or whoever does that program, or whatever Age Strong does as it relates to food resources and opportunities, that we can partner up with small local restaurants that are in that particular neighborhood that are more culturally responsive to the food makeup of that neighborhood, and invite them to have a contract in the city to help support. Like that might not sound like a big deal, but that will help a small business thrive. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious about, where the appetite is around removing as many red tape and barriers that exist.
Voracious appetite for removing these barriers. So, and I'm gonna take it a step further too, because one thing you didn't mention, non-citizens. Like what is even the ability for non-citizens to become vendors with the city and get a contract? And right now there is no mechanism.
I'm not done yet. I was going to take you there because I was about another issue that I come across. There's not even non-residents, but folks who are undocumented.
That's right.
They can't even we see this with BPS, we see this in so many different spaces and places, that undocumented businesses, or people who are entrepreneurs have actually no access or supports. And I'm glad that you, Chief, are bringing this into the conversation, because that's one of the issues that I wanted to bring into this discussion as well. Because when we're met with a moment, we have to make sure that we are seizing this moment to unpack all of the barriers that every single resident of the city of Boston, no matter what their status is, faces as they try to build. Because those businesses provide jobs. And if those folks are employed, then the outcomes, right, that are impacting the whole family, it's all boats rise, right? So this is like not just about businesses, but how it also helps the economy. So can you just talk to us a little bit about how you are leaning into that, please?
So a couple of things. So, and I bring it up because this is a conversation Andre and I and the rest of his team just had about how we invite undocumented peoples into this conversation and make sure that we are spending our money where it ought to be, where it ought to go. So, talking to law again on this issue, but also talking to our state partners on this as well. But we are moving in a direction of, hopefully allowing us to be able to do something like that, to invite undocumented immigrants into this conversation in terms of not certifying, first of all, that we can do business with them, and then awarding contracts that are won. In terms, though, of other languages. So one thing I will say is, I know for these conversations, there's we talk a lot about what the city can or cannot do, what our teams can or cannot do. And it's always been important to me since I came into this role that I continue what I was doing at BECMA, which was to build and sustain partnerships. And so there are so many organizations, like I would much rather have agreements with organizations that are on the ground every single day, have the relationships, than hire 200 more people that are gonna do the things that we're talking about today. Because as much as I would, love more staff and a bigger budget, and I'm sure everyone, finance wants the same, there's a lot of work happening at groups like BECMA or Lawyers for Civil Rights or LISC, et cetera, and people who are ready and willing to step up and be supportive. So at the same time, we're talking about how we're increasing the number of certified vendors or helping people understand the process. There's the work that can be done with the staff that we have at the moment, but lots more we can do with the partnership of these organizations, who can also do one-on-one support or hold seminars that they include city workers to share this information. So the short version of this is lots that we want to do and lots that we can do, but we are looking at how we are doing this jointly with folks outside of City Hall, in addition to the resources that we have here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And then as we're thinking about, I do appreciate the $250,000 RFP that's out there. I would also encourage you to really think about, and I haven't seen the scope of it, but I would love it to have a community-led approach to whatever outcomes and the work that they're going to be doing. Because if it's not centered with those who are living the realities, then it's just going to be some other outside entity creating templates to engage a community that they potentially may be disconnected from. So I would highly recommend that, that there is an advisory committee or some sort of group that helps inform who you'll pick. Not to say that we need to add any more processes in place, but I just think that having community input in your processes could probably help.
Agreed. And we also included in their language that would kind of ensure that the communities we are attempting to support it's built into the RFP that there'll be representation, I guess is the point. Yeah.
And I know I just want, because I know I believe my co-sponsor, Councilor Anderson, is still here, and I want to make sure that if she has one more question or a closing remark, that I give her some space before I go to mine. But, I would love to see an effort being made in contracting with businesses that are not native, that don't speak English. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many you can point to that we have, if any, because most, there's this notion because we're in America, everybody has to speak English. But there are a lot of successful businesses that don't speak a lick of English, and they are making millions of dollars, circulating dollars, or not millions, I'm exaggerating, but they're able to survive in their perspective, whatever niche that they are working in. But so I'm just curious, how is the city set up to help support non-English speaking businesses set up?
Well, for this, the broad question is we have lots of resources to work with non-English speakers, whether it's in the small business team or the supply diversity team. But in terms specifically to contracting, so far as I know, we are not currently set up for that. And that's precisely what we're looking to address. And that's one reason I talk about partnerships as well, because it's beyond just having the advertisement in another language or the RFP in another language. If English is not your first language and you have a preference for your native tongue, just being able to read something in your native tongue is not the only thing we should be doing. There should be someone holding your hand through the process who can communicate with you, and the city is not set up for that. But that's why I stress partnerships, because there are organizations that represent the diverse community we have in the city who do have members of their team on hand that could provide this type of benefit. And so we're looking at, do we put out contracts for this, or do we have agreements with organizations to work with us on this, as we're focused on just a reformation of the entire process that we've talked about today. So definitely something that's on the priority list, as you mentioned. And I will say there's one question I didn't answer yet, and I just want to tuck it in there before your next question or Councilor Anderson tags in, is on the comparison piece. So if we're comparing the certified, the list of certified vendors to what's out there. And I will say that thanks to your investment in last year's budget with the 350, a piece of that plus some other funding from small business is helping us do another assessment of small businesses in general that are out there in the city of Boston. Behind me, I actually did not plan it this way, but there is a poster board from 2017 after the city's last small business report that was conducted in 2016 that shows 40,000 businesses generating $15 billion and employing 170,000 people. Now that was true in 2017, but after COVID, so many businesses closed. So we have no idea if that 40,000 number is true, if that 170 is true, if that 15 billion is true. And so we're doing this update, which will then allow us to do exactly what you just said, to compare, all right, if we've got this many businesses, but only 700 are certified, we got to ramp up, right? And it's going to help us, it's going to break it down by ethnicity as well, so we know exactly which communities we have to target.
Thank you. And the letter of intent that the Supplier and Diversity sends out, it's a document that it's used by contractors. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it apparently has no power. And I'm just curious if the letter of intent is a legal document, like if there's a letter that gets sent out, or is that a different division or a different department? No, we don't do that here.
I'm not sure. I would have to ask Andre about that, but the letter of intent that we send, is this related to them being certified or when they get a contract?
To get a contract.
I'm not familiar with that. I apologize. I'll circle back with Andre and get a written response for you on that.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So I'm gonna go to Councilor Anderson for closing remarks, and then I don't think we have anyone signed up for public testimony. So then I'll do my closing remarks. Councilor Anderson, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks all of you for hanging in there with us. I look forward to future conversations if I can assist in any way. Madam Chair, thank you so much for filing and adding me as your co-sponsor. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. And then, so just in terms of my closing remarks, I just want to thank the administration and just how thorough and how prepared you walked into this space. It really goes to show how deeply committed you are to making sure that we get this right for our residents. And so I really do appreciate that. And I also wanted to just uplift that, there were some folks that were not here in terms of just auditing, and, there's other, entities that can help provide some input that will make sure that we'll follow up just to, see some questions that we potentially have that weren't able to unpack here. But at the end of the day, and I also want to uplift the community panel because they really help put a lot of things in perspective through their own lived experience. And only by listening and hearing from those who are living the realities can we really figure out how we can help support. So I just want to thank our community panel and my colleagues and central staff. And I'll just end with, for me, in my third year in politics, I always talk about the fact that I've learned a lot in the last 3 years, not just about the way city functions or doesn't, and the areas where we can grow. And I'm just encouraged by the direction that we're moving in. And I look forward to listening more, and during the budget season, which you already know we're going to be going into it, that we seize these moments to really listen and learn and figure out what can we be fighting for, and how to support those that we serve. So I look forward to that partnership. I look forward to having more thoughtful conversations like this, and I hope as you continue to navigate this process with us, that that I think that community is always screaming one thing, the administration is screaming the other, and the council is screaming the other. And I feel like if we can all just stop screaming, we can listen to each other and we could hear what needs to happen so that we can all move forward. So I just want to thank everyone for bringing that spirit into the space. And thank you for your time. And I am going to keep this in committee, and this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you.